Hello, everyone. We got some casting to do today. We have some replays from the Korean StarCraft League, as well as Wardy TV replays, and maybe, if I feel up to it, a StarCraft 2 versus Brood War best of 3. I don't know why she does this, but it's pretty cute. Every time I start streaming, she has to come up. Maybe she thinks I'm talking to her when I talk. Let's start off with the Korean StarCraft replays, which we're going to do a match that was not cast at the time of the tournament. So it might be new to all of us, actually. Still not going to do bets, though. I mean, it's not like the grubs really matter, but you can go look this up and see who won. So that'd be cheating. She's making sure you get to work. Yeah. Thanks, Phasm. Or Phasm. All right, let's get into it, guys. We got no cat, so let's get rid of that. Easy peasy. Put that up there. All right, it's a best of 3 TVZ, starting off on El Dorado. In the bottom left, it is Beyond. In the bottom right, it is Rogue. So, was keen on this replay because, one, it was not cast at the time of the tournament, so it might be fresh to all of us. 2, it has a Zerg player, which is rare in the weeklies that I cast on a more regular basis. And 3, it's Rogue, who I have not cast in a while. When he came back into StarCraft, I did make it a point to try and cast some of his replays. But honestly, he just fell off. He does not play in the European timed tournaments, which is mostly what I cast. Beyond does, because Beyond has always been a machine, but there's just always been, let's say, like 4 or 5 Korean players who are willing to play in the middle of the night Korea time. And Rogue, I don't think has ever really been one of those guys. I could be wrong. I could be misremembering, but pretty sure that's the case. Pretty sure. He might have actually played in some of them when he first started to come back. That sounds vaguely familiar. I might have speculated that it was, just an attempt to get those reps in because he was going to have to catch up to everyone. But at this point, I don't even know how long it's been since he's been in military, but he's been playing StarCraft steadily once again for a while. And I assume is well, not back up to his old form, because his old form could just come out of nowhere and win championships and then drop out of round of 32 GSL the next season. And I don't think he is able to just come out of nowhere and win championships at this point in time. But then again, we haven't had a lot of tests for that. So he's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get with Rogue. But we know a lot about Bjorn. And one thing we know about Bjorn is that his TVZ is quite good. Oh, I was like, why is the Mula making a sound? All right. His TVZ is good. It's also kind of sometimes unique. He's one of the players who is still willing to do some outside of the 3CC 111 builds, which frankly still make up the majority of TVZs. He does bring out the even like a 2-base 211. I feel like it's been a while, so maybe this was like 4 months ago, but still, like, he does still bring that out, surprisingly enough. Not a meta build whatsoever, but one that can surprise. And one that if you were going to bring it out, you might bring it out in a map like this, just because it is close by air, which is not really a valid phrase anymore, but I do it anyway. But we'll see. It is not a 211. It is going to be a 3CC without that second gas, so this does look like a very normal 3CC Hellion. And just because Beyond... Okay, well, that's not normal. Just because Beyond doesn't always do this doesn't mean that he obviously, it's not his bread and butter as well, because it's just what TVZ is nowadays. But the 3CC, the third V out here, that is unique. Glad there's something else to talk about. Wow, okay. Well, this is kind of a funny thing. Now, this isn't the first time that we've seen a Terran player or Beyond go for his third CC on the low grounds this fast, right? The typical 3CC build is off of, I mean, you have one Reaper and a Marine. Look at what you have. right? All right, you cannot defend that 3rd CC from like 8 lings. So that's what's so dangerous about this. Obviously, the Hellions come out, but then even only 2 Hellions wouldn't stop, for instance, 16 to 20 lings from stopping this 3rd command center. But the thing about these command centers on location, which is funny to say for this one, but obviously there's like minerals blocking where it's supposed to go. The Zerg just doesn't expect this. So they actually don't scout it a lot of the time. The Overlord pathing that they will take for their Overlord scout will not stay around kind of the more forward triangle 3rd area. Now this one does, but it's still out of range. So this was gotten away, no problem whatsoever. And I gotta imagine that it would be a Zerg player's in their interest to actually go after that 3rd CC if they scouted it. If they scouted that 20% done, I gotta imagine a Zerg player would be like, well, no, you ain't. I'm gonna make like 20 lings. And that's gonna be worth, because it's gonna cancel, let's say, like a 40% finished command center. That's a lot of lost time. That's the SCV killed. That's the 100 minerals out of the cancel. And I think that would be worth the lings that would usually be drones. But if you don't know, you can't decide. And that's what happened there. Beyond gets away with this, no problem. Even uses the SCV that built the command center to mine out the minerals that were blocking it, which just is such a freebie. It's an insane freebie. I mean, I'd be actually very upset if I watched this as Rogue. And now, the fact that it's a 3rd CC is not surprising. That's not something that Zerg players typically expect to be able to stop. They would have to really all in, typically, to stop a 3 CC from really getting the reward. But the fact that you get on location on the gold here as fast as you possibly can, that's a really big boon. That really can't be overstated. It's a tremendous difference having to wait for the orbital build here and then lift it all the way over and then have to send maybe 2 SCVs to mine it out as quickly as possible. It's so different. Anyway, moving on from that, because that is done. Nothing Rogue can do about it. 6 Hellions and a couple of Banshees. No Cloak. I did mention this in a previous cast, but Beyond really does seem to be favoring more and more in this matchup the non-Cloak Banshee. He's one of the guys who will throw out the Banshee in general. For the whatchamacallit, the TVP matchup. There we go. The other matchup that occurs. He is one of the ones who will actually go for Banshees, and then you do usually get Cloak in that matchup. You would usually get Cloak in this matchup too, but it seems like we got kind of a new experiment going on. Beyond's 3rd CC is woefully under-defended. 6 Hellions would absolutely do the trick in defending that, but did not realize lings were being sent on over there, so 3 SCVs did go down. No mod here, because this was not cast live. So the poor gamers don't bother with it. But the lings, not making up for the fact that 3rd CC was on location. Definitely not doing enough damage for that, but the more that he can get away with that, the better. Should not happen again, though, honestly. At this point in time, I think it is safe for Beyond to rally to his 3rd CC. So you'd have to find like a really, really close timing where the army has just moved out and the reinforcements aren't big enough to stop a Ling, perhaps Ling Baneling run by, actually. As we do have Banelings, obviously, not going into Roach, so you need those Banelings. You have 1-1 on the way for Rogue, but it's not very fast at all. I mean, Byung didn't just get away with what looks like a 3cc like on location. He also got away with 2 engineering bays after that 3rd CC by the looks of things. So just the fastest, greediest thing that you can do as a Terran player. And he's not going to just take this and run with it and try and get further ahead into a faster 4th and then like a super defensive play, which I'm sure could work out. Now, Byun is going to use all of this power that he's gained basically for free to go into a very powerful Arax. Like, I'm going to call it now. I'm going to do the pro gamer thing. I don't think Rogue can win against this. I think Rogue is screwed. But we'll see. We'll see. Not so good so far. Losing Overlords, getting supply block, not enough creep to actually take care of the army as he tries to go after it. Hatchery's going to have to be canceled. That's never going to happen. I can tell you that. And the creep still is not really helping here. The tank not even destroyed. Oh my god, this is a disaster. This is a freaking disaster. But this is the worst possible scenario, I think. That 3cc double engineering bay gotten away so quickly. He's actually going for 4th CC pretty fast behind this 8 racks and didn't even get the additions onto the barracks for the 8 racks. So that's kind of a twist on things. You still would lack that second factory that you would usually need if you go into a longer TVZ, so there is still a kind of a downside to doing this, but it does seem like Beyond is going to get the best of both worlds. He's going to, well, straight up win. Yep, there you go. Straight up win with the 8 racks and have the possibility of macro behind it. So that was, yeah, that was no contest whatsoever. Rogue just, you know, he really needed to do something about that 3rd CC or be equally as greedy, which I'm going to admit I was looking at the Terran more than the Zerg, but I'm pretty sure Rogue did everything that would be, like, normal for Zerg. I'm not sure how much greedier he could have been. Maybe, I guess, maybe the Lings that he sent over the 3rd CC, which weren't worth it, could have been drones faster, but maybe you actually push off that Baneling Nest farther. You didn't need to get some triple hooks faster. I mean, it's just, I actually don't know. This seems like a especially cruel build when you get away with it at the very least for the Zerg player to handle. So that was quick and easy right there. Going into game 2 once I find it. Let's see here. There it is. It's going to be on the map Talisman. Have you seen that map? I think we did see this map actually. But then it was rotated out of the weeklies for whatever reason. So, okay. Well, on the bottom left, we do have Byun, who is now up 1. And the top right, it is Rogue, who just got obliterated by as fast as 3rd CC you could possibly get into an ARAX. Really didn't stand a chance. Gonna look to not do that again, but it's also unlikely that Byun will ever try and get away with the 3rd CC on the low ground. That's something you bring out once, and then you can't really do it again without being at least scouted. I suppose it could still be a dilemma for the Zerg player if they scout that 3rd CC going down on location to actually produce the army that would need to be produced to take it down. And maybe that's still a question, but as I said in the first game, I think it would have been worth it. Just the Rogue didn't know. Now, I do remember this map 100% being played because I did not realize that there was this little worker ramp that existed until someone pointed it out. So you see Rogue using that to grab his natural at his 3rd, though. I mean, I'm pretty sure this isn't super normal, but then again, I could see why you would do it. Well, yeah, it actually doesn't seem like too bad of a natural, honestly. It's still, the anticipated one is going to be this one, right? We'll see if that's true, if Byun's Reaper directly goes to the natural or to the 3rd. So far, not queued up for anything. But this makes sense. First of all, it's half gold, right? So that there's a reason that you really want to get this. And then the question, as always, is the trade-off worth it? So sometimes those full gold bases are just out in the middle of the map, and it's incredibly dangerous to take it, right? But the half gold, half blue, it's protected on the right side by debris. On the left side, that just means that the Terran has to walk the farthest possible on this map if they want to attack on the left side. And then if they want to take a bit of a shorter pathway, they got to go through this base, but it is a pretty small choke. So to be fair, both players would have trouble moving into each other for this. But one of the other benefits of getting your natural in a head position is that your creep spread already going to cover it. So Byun would have to wait for the creep spread, and then Rogue could have the opportunity to not have to use the choke, and then by the time Byun actually gets to the choke, you know, he's the one that has to push through, and Rogue's waiting with, like, billions of Hydras and Banelings and whatnot. So I could see this actually being a typical normal natural. And Byun did send his Reaper to it, but to be fair, I didn't check if his Reaper was just queued to the main. So maybe it is normal, maybe it isn't. My cat's getting in as much trouble as she possibly can so that I can't concentrate. So the two-way ramp. Yeah, you can go up it because I think we had a probe scout up it in a game that I missed. So, which is actually pretty important for other matchups. Obviously, in this one, you don't have any SCV. Well, sometimes you do. And Rogue would be one of the Zerg players you might want to SCV scout, to be fair. But more so like in PvP, where sneaking a probe in to scout for the pylon numbers or the technology could actually be Very important. There's a little sneaky pathway there. We do have another 3cc build from Bjorn. His 3rd cc, though, is safely in the main. It is probably going to take over this base, too, though. That makes a lot of sense. And then you can see that the minerals are lowest in the pathway area, so you do open up the pathway pretty quickly to go ahead and defend this. It's not like you're trapped out and always going around for it. The Reaper has full knowledge at this point of exactly what's going on. It might even stick around long enough if the drones don't kill it, and the drones aren't going to try. Okay. Killed a drone. Died to the speedlings. That was inevitable. Was not able to see the next round of drones, but there's nothing else that's suspicious that would tell him that he needs to watch out for anything but drones. Looks like I didn't really understand what the rocks were. I thought they were the big ones, like 3 of the big ones, but they are 6 of the small ones. So 7. Counting's hard. But the point is, you know, either way, I guess, is that if you break one, you break the rest of them. So it's not as hefty as it looks. But it would be in the best interest for the Zerg player to break this down immediately, because while the natural could be a point of attack for the Terran, obviously this could also be a point of attack. I mean, the Zerg player having to only come in from one direction is never its goal. So you got to cover your bases there. And this is where I might assume Bjorn... Well, I don't want to say that. But anyway, there is a lack of creep spread here. Bjorn can abuse that with his real push, but he might just go ahead and stick to the 4th base pressure, which would be more common. But it's kind of different on this map, isn't it? Banshee number 1 is just going to float right past a queen, and 2 queens now, actually, which seems unwise. Did bother to research Cloak, but the timing, Jesus. Oh, boy. That was a bit odd, actually. I wonder if he misrallied and then just had to kind of go with it. Also awkward is this 3rd CC is not yet protected. A single Ling having some fun. Killing in 1 SCV in exchange for the 3, I guess, killed by the Banshee. Excuse me. Wait, stop that. She likes to bite my sketch pad. She likes to bite paper, is what we've discovered. So I've given her a chew stick, like a dog. Except she doesn't use it. Actually, I do have it. Alright, no action on the way. Okay. See? Chew stick. Go get it. Alright. I could have paused. This is a replay, but, you know, it's TVZ, and we're kind of waiting for the ball to really get rolling. As it does look, it looks like Rogue is in a much better position this game. He's not getting 8 racks as I am speaking. It's already better. But, still a little shy in the creep spread is what I'm worried about. We do have Bjorn almost ready to go. Medivacs are about to pop out, and he could do at least a small push, perhaps leading up to this area. Maybe use the rocks to protect the tank a little bit. The Hellions actually doing a great job clearing up creep spread in this other area that I was pointing out could be the attack path. I mean, the benefit of attacking here is that there really isn't a lot of creep spread, and it would hit a vital artery of the Zerg player should you get close enough. Killing that natural or stopping the reinforcements from the natural in the main is a pretty big deal. Well, kind of from the main, I guess you can still go that way. But this one would kind of make it a little more difficult, I think, for Rogue to actually get this full surround. So let's say that you do park your tank up there, and you have to come all the way down there. So, I mean, I feel like both choices are actually kind of valid. It does look like we're going for the quick cancel on this base here. Kind of forgot that the hatchery was changed in cost, and the cancel doesn't look right. But this is, okay, I can see where the tank's going to use this one. Now, this is on creep, though. The Marines are going to have to run away, and this is a pretty nice surround. Coming in from 3 different angles. Looks a lot better. A lot better. Rogue was totally prepared for that. He has been on 77-ish drones for about a minute, I want to say, so he has just been pumping out army. without contest. There's nothing else really for Rogue to be setting up here. So Army, now technology, and with the, I guess, denial of this push, feels very comfortable getting up to 83 drones, which would be nicer as we get into that hive technology. But it just like totally prepared for this. Beyond's push, not really catching Rogue off guard, that's for sure. It can be a battle of a bit of back and forth, so Rogue could run a Banelings. This is not the case, though. Beyond actually getting a little too overly aggressive, to be honest. Maybe thinking his drop had distracted more than it did. But Rogue has plenty of army, has not run a Banelings, and is ready to pounce on the army that is trying to take this high ground. And I don't think Beyond really respected it as much as he should. We do only have 3 CC for Beyond, as he did go back into that 8 racks. The 4th CC not yet on the way, but does seem to be his plan. This is going to be off creep, so that should be better for Beyond, but his tank count was already taken down earlier, so he's forced to just split, and split more, and his splits are fine, but his overall game is not. And Rogue will win very convincingly for game number 2 to tie things up. And I gotta imagine there was some amount of boosting that happened with the Zerg player grabbing the gold base. Half gold, but still, that early on. So we've had 2 games that were decided fairly early on. Let's see what game 3 has in store. In the bottom left of ley lines, it is Beyond. Top right, it is Rogue. So, Beyond gets the greediest thing possible, I think, for Terran. Pretty sure about that one. There was once upon a time a 3cc after barracks, not factory, but that's I don't even think it really works as a build anymore. It's not even streamlined anymore. So the greediest thing a Terran could do in game 1, and then the game 2, Rogue kind of did the greediest thing a Zerg could reasonably do, I suppose. I mean, getting the natural that has half gold is a pretty big boost. Getting his 3rd base up without an eruption. The Banshees really failing at their job, with the first one being almost a complete failure. Then I think it could have still been a scary game for Rogue up against an 8 racks, even though he was the one that was kind of supercharged that game. But Beyond's position, maybe a little overzealous. You know, the first one could see how that's abusive, but Rogue was really, he'd been ready for, at least 30 seconds, I think, to actually handle that push. And then it was about how much could the Terran trade out. Do they save the Marines in the medevac? The tanks get a couple of Baneling shots that are pretty good. And there's one tank, kind of take forever to kill. And it was pretty quick and easy cleanup. Double medevac drop, not a fearsome thing. Rogue took care of that, no problem, and still had leftovers to go deal with the follow-up push. And that follow-up push, the second push, I think is really where you could just tell that Beyond had no steam. The second push being an utter failure, kind of going on that creep, sieging up on creep with the Zerg player not at all exhausted. Sometimes you can do that. You can push up aggressively because the Zerg player goes, oh shit, I don't have enough Banelings, I didn't have enough Lings, my larva was a little low, what have you. But that was absolutely not the case. Rogue, even having that double macro hatchery in the main base, was totally prepared to just swell on Lings. Now we have another build coming out here for Beyond. So we did the 3cc on location first game, sorry. That's kind of clever, but a regular build as far as that goes. Second game, very regular thing, very regular. Third game, he's going to bring out his CC first. Now, sometimes when he does the CC first into a 2-1-1, which seems to be the case here, the second barracks, this actually can lead into a pretty fearsome tank push. It's kind of quick. And that would be very different, I think, from the previous 2 games, which, as far as the pacing goes, like, the pacing was faster for Beyond in the first game because of his opener. But the whole idea of Beyond's build was very similar in both games. But this, if he is going to go for some type of 2-base attack, already doing a 2-base 2-1-1 is already going to kind of really change up the flow of this TVZ. Because really, when you're only anticipating Hellions and Banshees, you, as a Zerg player, have probably practiced against that a million times. It's still the most common thing to do. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes Zerg player can deflect that so easily. They have everything lined up. crossed their T's, dotted their I's. The 2-1-1 fell into that trap a long time ago. That is the trap that the Zerg player knows it's on the way and has perfected the way to defend it. They don't over-defend, they don't under-defend. And so that fell out of fashion. We had the 3cc 2-1-1 version come into play, and that was better. But even that, you know, wasn't so much about the first 2 medevacs doing anything. It was about maybe some of the clever follow-ups that could happen. If you go back to a 2-base 2-1-1, sometimes because it is the abnormal thing to do, that is what shocks the Zerg player, so they're preparing for Hellions. Now, in this case, that's obviously Salt Marines, so he's not preparing for Hellions. But nonetheless, because this is not as practice as it once was for the Zerg player, we do have some Zerg players mess up against Beyond's 2-1-1. Even though you could really just dig deep into your history, right, and just be like, okay, well, it's going to hit at 5 minutes, and then it's, you know, it could follow up with a 2-base, or it could follow up with 3cc. I should go check that, and then, you know, if I have enough queens and enough lings, I don't need any banelings. But it's the change-up that can really throw some Zerg players off. Now, I'm looking at the Zerg situation this time around. Rogue seems to be doing everything he needs to do against 2-1-1 since scouting the Marine number. That's all you need to see was the Marine number. That's all he did. And +1 Carapace faster seems to be the goal here. That's one of the first things people figured out for this. Second thing was, like I said, enough queens with lings only for the first double drop. That's all you actually need. To make a baneling nest and make banelings right now would be overkill, be over-defending. And that has always been the trick about the 2-1-1, especially if it's a 2-base follow-up, is that the Zerg player can sometimes over-defend and not be able to sustain as long as the Terran player. They're just going to be relentless in their attacks. So that's the trick right now. Presumably, nothing happens with the 2 medevacs, but an Overlord, a couple of creep timbers do die. Did not supply block Rogue, though, and he's already replacing them. The next step is the follow-up. Is it the fast 3rd medevac on the way trying to reinforce here, or is it a 2-base, or is it a 3rd CC? Rogue does not know that right now. If he scouted the front, it'd be only supply depots. That's not a hint. The 3rd CC could be in the main, and there could still be double engineering base somewhere else. And that's the other way you can find out this is a 2-base, is if there's only a single engineering bay. That's not something that Rogue can easily do, and he does not have Overlord speed, so it's not going to happen anytime soon. He does have a couple of lings waiting for the push out of tanks. That would be his actual scouts on what is happening. And it could still be difficult to defend. Baneling Nest is almost done, so Banelings will be available. Baneling speed, much farther off, though. The layer did finish maybe 20 seconds ago, so could have arguably been better timed. Gas is also surprisingly low. I do wonder if he was later to his gas, or maybe saturating his gas. And I'm worried about the amount of Banelings that he can make as we get into the actual push. Then you do kind of need some banelings at the very least. But 4 or 6, okay, there we go. 8 is a little better. 8 banelings better. Rogue actually looking to buy some time with a run by, but supply depots are up and reinforcements are there. Now going to turn this into a potential surround. Is he timing this out correctly, though? The banelings are just not going to contribute, man. And the queens, well, they are tanking the tank damage on the backside. The banelings are actually able to threaten the Marines. And that ended up being quite a good cleanup. That was just so much army. It's not as convincing as last game. Last game, Rogue was also on, 70-plus drones, eventually into 80, all the bases, all the hatcheries, baneling speed was finishing, double upgrades, what have you. This game, he is still only on 49 drones. This is now the play for the Terran player, is to exhaust the Zerg player. Get them when they just don't have enough lings, they don't have enough banelings. The queens eventually start to fall as well, and they're kind of time buyers right now. They just are good at tanking with all the transfuse they have, but eventually they'll fall, and we know what happens when a Zerg player runs out of banelings in particular. That's when the Terran can overwhelm. Baneling speed is now done. This is going to be entirely or almost entirely off of creep. Nice focus fire on the banelings to the right side. That is dangerous news for Rogue. In fact, that could be fatal news for Rogue. He does still have a couple of banelings left over. A scan ahead reveals that you can't blitz into the Zerg player right now, but that was a good attack from Beyond. No doubt about that. That's when you really start to worry for the Zerg player. And now we have lings catching some of the Marines on the low ground, not quite catching the medevac with the queens. Another thing the queens are good for, to be fair. But that's still a decent amount of army left over. Certainly enough to stay put and allow the reinforcements to come to them. No run-by attempted. Freedom for Beyond to send over his reinforcements. Now targeting this kind of 4th/5th. Rogue has a 5th on the way on the other side, and you'll have to use that as well. Well, at least he would if he had enough drones, but he doesn't have enough drones to saturate 4 bases. Kind of attempted to save that base, but it really wasn't worth it. Not nearly enough. Kind of cute Spore Crawler that was probably built earlier on. Going to be obliterated, not going to be helpful. Banelings did crash through the supply depots. Rogue a little desperate to run by here. I think it is probably his only good plan left. Attacking into now the entire Terran force with all the reinforcements. Just doesn't look like it's going to work. He does not have enough army. He's going to try once again to come in with a surround, which worked out initially. But I think he's in even a worse position this time around. Comparatively, the armies are only 9 army supply difference, but when you really look at the context of the match, the tanks sieged up in great positions. 3 of them available now, not just 1. The Marines off of creep as well. That 75 army supply I don't think actually means as much. He's going to try and go for it. Banelings will be able to make some connections, actually. In fact, more connections than I anticipated. The medevac's forced to pick up what they can, but now they're full up. Sorry, guys. This is not all of Byun's army. However, it will save 2 medevacs worth of units, but then his reinforcements went over to the left. Rogue gonna have to respond here, because these 4th bases might not have a lot of drones on them as he desperately tries to get his drone count up higher. He actually managed to fit in a couple, so he's going up to past 60 right now. But it's also important for his macro. He might not be able to produce enough lings. He's actually missing some injects right now, too. That could be a major problem. That could be the problem. Some clever position on the tank here. He can back away into with 3 medevacs. He can pick up all the Marines as well, so this is relatively danger-free, unless he messes up his micro. And the Queens are targeting the medevacs as they should. Still alive, however, providing that threat is quite important. A little focus fire here from Byun, because why not? It's not actually the best that we've ever seen from him. Note that Byun is starting to exhaust his main base resources. He will have the ability to lift, but then that would make a very, very vulnerable 3rd, which Rogue should take advantage of. Rogue playing a little whack-a-mole Zerg at this point because he is starting to bank up those minerals. He doesn't have enough larvae to produce as much as he needs. If he had 800 extra minerals in Lings and maybe a handful of Banelings, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. But instead, he is forced to use it in other ways. And one of those ways is, I guess, just playing the whack-a-mole. Just getting hatcheries when and where he can. Queens also would be some use of the minerals. And it's better than nothing. A bank is the worst thing you can have. Liberator is not going to find any success. Little distraction, perhaps. Rogue is back to paying attention on the front lines, though. The tank on the low ground is still there. 3 tanks once again well-positioned. Creep spread getting denied. Double drop still forcing some attention away. Looks like it was finally cleaned up, so Rogue can now focus entirely on the main force, but the supplies are not painting a pretty picture for Rogue right now. He is down about 20 supply, down 30 in the army. The upgrades also have equalized. I guess they've always kind of been equal, kind of 1-1 versus +2 and all that, but now we do have Rogue with 1-2 and Byun with 2-1-1. He actually managed to fit in the vehicle tank attack, so these tanks have been a little more helpful. Marines are going to actually catch the attempted run-by of Rogue. That was just a waste of units. Probably hoping the 3rd was vulnerable, was on location. Not quite. We're getting there, but off timing on that one. Rogue manages to get another 4th base up in the nick of time as he can saturate it because he's running out of minerals everywhere else. And he did add those extra drones, to be fair. But shot back down below 60 thanks to a couple of drone kills. He is running out of steam. And this base, not exactly an easy one to have. This is a wonderful position for the Terran player. The tank on the low ground here. Oh, that's so abusive. Oh, and a big drop into the main base. Usually I'm not a fan of the Doom drop in this matchup, but this actually is going to work out, I think. Banelings will make the connections. Tanks will be left by their lonesome. Maybe that wasn't the best. Maybe it wasn't the worst. Maybe it was mediocre. Maybe it's just enough. 4 Marines manage to survive. 1 medevac apiece for them. They're going to go after the drones. Rogue desperately needing whatever he can muster. I was hoping that would be cleaned up lickety-split. Instead, it barely wasn't. Little distraction, however, so Bjorn does lose some Marines, but Rogue is starting to fall apart. He really needed that 4th base. At the end of the day, he really just needed that 4th base. So even if this drop happened or not, the 4th base being denied super easily is the biggest problem, I would say. His replacement 4th did not come down in the nick of time, so his drones are super oversaturating his bases. Some SCVs did go down to a run-by that I missed, but it's not equivalent. We know that Bjorn can still throw down a couple of mules if he really needed to. It looks like he's saving up scans, however, totally focused on the aggression and knowing that he's not desperate for minerals. If he can produce however many Marines he can produce, right? Then that's all he needs. And actually, he's adding in a couple of Marauders. Widowmine's also making an appearance, something that Rogue hasn't had to deal with quite yet. Could actually surprise him. 12 SCVs going down this time to Rogue's run by. This is getting... It's getting kind of chaotic on both sides. Bjorn, I thought, was in a position where this would snowball in his favor, but he was running out of his 2-base economy. His 3rd CC economy, if you call it that, anyway. It's not consistent. Rogue is hanging on to some type of consistency with his 4th base. Just barely hanging on, but he is. So an influx of minerals goes his way. He actually is mining more than his opponent because Bjorn is not dropping the mules all the time. Now he has, as he lost those SCVs, but you can see even with the mules, he's not making enough money to beat Rogue. To make Marines and Marauders, he is making enough money, and that is ultimately what I think this is going to come down to. Bjorn, as long as he doesn't take banelings to the face, which he kind of did right there, a little bit, then he will win out the war. Drop goes in on the top side, kills a couple of drones as well. We had the intentional dropping of Marines. That's what we heard of the banelings exploding. 1 Marine for a baneling. Probably worth it. I mean, both of them are so low in economy. But probably worth it. Banelings are expensive. It's the funniest, desperate drop, man. It's hanging on. It's like, I got this, buddy. Medevac good target fire from Rogue is going to go down. Bjorn, though, on the forefront of the 4th base is getting denied so far, having to deal with a run-by once again on his 3rd. 8 more SCVs do go down, and he's not replacing them too quickly. He's replacing some. I think the goal is just to have about a base and a half of saturation, actually, for the Terran SCV count, but more than that, not super necessary. The natural also is probably going to try and take a base. This is as scrappy as you can get. Rogue, pretty desperate for a real connection, though. A real human connection. A real Marine connection. He wants these banelings to finally capture all these Marines that are leaving themselves a little vulnerable. The Marauders supposed to be on the front lines tanking. Instead, they're trapped by Lings, but it's 2-2 versus 2-2, and, well, frankly, Marauders don't die that quick to Lings or banelings. Medevacs are getting... Well, the Medevac with the units are getting low. And we can see that what was a 20 supply lead earlier on, or about 17, I think, is actually dipped down. And we really do have to consider that a lot of the supply right now is in Medevacs. Medevacs do not win games most of the time. Although you can do some real fancy stuff with the micro, but most of the time they're not going to win games. Bjorn has not gotten that one punch that he was hoping for. Every time he was trying to get on the front lines, have his Widowmines burrowed, have his Marauders on the front, Marines pulled back off of creep. He has been caught by surprise. He has been overly aggressive, what have you. Finally getting into a more perfect Terran engagement position. The Widowmines there to fall back to, the Marauders tanking the banelings. Rogue is very much intentionally targeting those Marines, something that Bjorn was a little late to realizing, but picked up at the last seconds. He has taken care of most, if not all, of Zerg's banelings, and I think this might be the death push. It's got to be kind of for Bjorn, who is down to 9 SCVs. His 3rd CC, God, again, not a 3rd CC. His natural command center lands back down. We could have a couple of mule drops. That's something we got to do, and actually Rogue is going to tap out. He's just without any army. He was at a 1/3 of the army supply, finally completely exhausted. But it got closer than I ever thought it would. I really thought Bjorn's army was going to win. Eventually it did, but Rogue made this game maybe 5 minutes longer than I anticipated. What a scrappy game. GG. And what's our next cast? let's cast some Cure. I haven't cast Cure in a while. Let's cast Cure's TVZ. We're on Amygdala for game 1 of this TVZ best of 3. In the top right, it is Cure. In the bottom left, it is Dark. This is from the Korean StarCraft League, the KSL. You can support their Patreon. It's patreon.com/Korean StarCraft League. They do host every other week, I believe now, tournaments that are for the Korean players. As the Korean players, arguably still the worst hit out of all of the regions. Yeah, I'd still say that. StarCraft is in a period of flux, shall we say. I do think we're going to get some good news soon. I won't say any more than that. I might have heard something. I might not have. You didn't hear it from me if you did or did not hear it from me. Anyway, but no matter how you slice it, the Korean scene went from total domination to, frankly, lacking in new players and then eventually losing out on their major tournaments, which... again, isn't technically canceled as far as an announcement, so who actually knows? But the only thing we have to go on for the Korean scene is that apparently the Africa TV CEO or big guy who is important, who goes to the events to say stuff, did mention StarCraft 2 in his speech, but is so far only doing a StarCraft 1 tournament. That's all the information I have for you. Anyway, so back to the players. Cure, obviously joining Team Liquid. Was it last year? It was either last year or late the year before that. Anyway, I thought it was a great pickup. I loved it. Team Liquid actually has a bit of a history when it came to hiring some of the best Korean Terrans. Most famously, they did get Tasia. But they've always had like an affinity for Terrans, it feels like. I was reminded recently of their very, very... short-lived pickup of C. Liquid C was a thing for a little bit. He's a Brood War player who, of course, when everyone changed over to StarCraft 2, played StarCraft 2, but went back to Brood War. One of the first to go back to Brood War, actually, I want to say. He was one of the first to, I think, also get like a big crowd on Africa and kind of realize like there is a market for Brood War people on streaming. And so we had more and more Brood War players go back to Brood War. But C was one of the first. He did also get into some trouble, let's say. There's some controversy. You can look it up on C if you would like to. But right. So Cure, I love him. I love the pickup. I think he was a godly TVZ 2 years ago. But besides that point of time when he was at Gamers 8 trying to take on Raynor, who was also playing arguably the best Zerg I've ever seen, it was an amazing... like, both these players were just at the top of their game, it felt like. Raynor's at the top of his game. Cure's at the top of his game. At the end of the day, Raynor did prove successful, 4-2, I believe, at the finals. But that was Cure's best TVZ in ever, I think, actually. Because otherwise, Cure's TVZ, not typically that impressive. I'm going to say it. Yeah. Cure, much more well-known for his godly TVT, TVT that could at least contest Maru's when Maru was a god at that matchup. Then maybe better at some point if you're, if you really want to dive into the stats, I guess. But TVP was also his jam for a while. He was godly in that matchup, just making lemons out of lemonade all the time. Wait, no. Lemonade out of lemons. There we go. All the time in that matchup. But TVZ, it just felt somewhat inspired. His TVT felt almost perfect, except Maru was even more perfecter. And then his TVP was a little sloppy at times, but he would always and eventually choose the right thing to do, and he would win. His TVZ, it kind of felt at times that Cure was just lost. And we'll see if that's still the case here versus Dark. Dark is minutes away, it feels like, from going to the military. He did not play in the most recent KSL, I believe, although it still is not reported he's gone to the military. It's this, like, they're about to knock on your door and take you kind of thing, which isn't actually what happens, but it just feels that way. So enjoy Dark games while you can. But we know Dark. I know that Dark can be a very aggressive Zerg player, real just like punch you in the face, don't try anything clever. He can cheese. He can play more roaches than a lot of his Zerg counterparts, although he's kind of backed away on roaches, it feels like, in the last year. And so he is a different type of Zerg player to face. I'm not ready to say that that's really something that benefits Cure, though. So I'm looking for Cure's TVZ ability right now. Dark, I feel like, is still... Oh, he's very much doing what Dark is. Okay, all right. Dark is still Dark. There you go. Nidus Worm is on the way, guys. It doesn't seem like a TVZ build, but it is. Nidus Worm off of 3 base, Ling Queen. That's all that's going into that. But Cure has gone for a 3cc build. He went 3cc 111. He got the 6 Hellions, so very, very typical. He is particularly on point about Nidus Worms, though, it looks like. Is it just me? The Marines rallied to this location. Has to be for a Nidus Worm. And I'm pretty sure I chose the right replay. And that this is game 1. He might just be like, it's dark. Of course it's dark. Of course he's going to try. But, you know, the Nidus Worm has been done for a while, and there's been no attempt at making it happen. Oh, the off timing. Yeah, Cure is totally on top of this, man. Dark, though, is actually setting up that Nidus Worm as a bit of a bait, bit of a distraction. 3rd CC is now going to have to lose all his FTVs, but it looks like Cure, as soon as that Nidus Worm popped up, he was like, oh, I know what you're going to do. Supply depots went up, Hellions regarding that. Banshee comes back, deal with the Nidus Worm. This seems like a total failure on the part of Dark, who is only continuing on because he is trying to make up a facade, if you will, of aggression when he's actually getting drones. One Queen pops out. She should not get that creep tumor. Yeah, no way, no way. This is terrible for Dark. There's really no way to put it. It's atrocious. It's atrocious. Cure was totally on guard about it. Dark waited for the Marines to move, but to be honest, I'm not even sure it would have been successful, even if the Nidus Worm did get up. I mean, the Queens would have popped out, meaning that the Hellions weren't as much of a godsend as they would have been against Pureling, but still, I don't know, because he had to wait a little bit longer, and Cure's build is very streamlined, and all of his Sim City would have been away from the... I had my doubts in the first place, but no doubt about it now. That was a bad opener from Dark, who is going to try and make one hell of a comeback. Now, he is good at making comebacks, but I would say that the best comeback opportunity is with Ravagers and Infestors, which is not what he's doing. So with Ling Baneling, Hive? Is he just going to rate in Ultras? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what his plan is to make a comeback happen. The Baneling Nest is coming down. We got 3 hatcheries coming down at once. God love you, Dark. Ling's trying for run-bys. Always the best thing you can try to do to buy time. But the Banshees, even though they don't kill Lings particularly quickly, are still going to be a thorn in Dark's side there. They're not going to let those Lings run free on the 3rd. And he microed, so the CVs were never in trouble. All the while, Cure was actually taking a really fast approach to this attack. He didn't just move out with his Hellbats and tank ready. He moved out with Marines first, and then carried everything else with his Medivacs later. It's about as fast as he could get to this side of the map. With the tank in a really abusive position. Hellbats will protect them against the Lings, of which there are only Lings right now. Banelings are being created, but then the Hellbats will do a good job tanking those Banelings. And, I think Dark could handle this first push, sure. I don't think he can handle every other push beyond it. And he can't handle it fast enough to save that hatchery. No run-by. No surround. He is going to try and get to Ultras. Wow. You know, I could see their Hail Mary potential. They're not quite what we think of. We think of burrowed banelings. We think of Fester Fungals. We think of maybe Lurkers as a comeback tool. Ultras, not so much. But I will say, if you can get to really fast Ultras before the Terran player is ready with the additional 3 tech labs on their barracks for the Marauders, the Ultras are very good against Marines. It's kind of their thing. And they can even be good against Marauders if they get us around. So it's just one of the most expensive plays you can make. And 1 or 2 Ultras, especially without chitinous plating, which is another upgrade you have to wait for, they're not good. So we'll see if we even get there. The attempt to bust this looks like it won't be good enough. It is not good enough. Might have looked promising for the very first second of that battle, but there was so much Terran. Hidden in the nooks and crannies of the minerals, protected by the tank that's still alive. The medevacs could have always picked up more Marines if they needed to. And it was not the bust that Dark was looking for. And I don't think he's going to get to those Ultras. Okay, a couple of Baneling connections finally happening. But as reinforcements come in, Banshee's also making an aggressive push. Now they don't have to worry about the run-bys, making the Spore Crawler micro. And Dark says, you know what? Fine, you got me. Fine. I guess I'll leave. God. Of course, he did die when the Nidus Worm didn't work. Just a game, Cure. God, give me fun. Yeah. There's no cats in the cat cam, so cat cam don't work with no cats in the cat cam. And now into game 2 on El Dorado in the top... Nope, bottom. In the bottom right, it is Team Liquid's Cure, and in the bottom left, it is Dark. You always gotta have that moment of hesitation when you're like, do I want the left side player to be on the top of the bar or the right side player? Anyways, El Dorado gonna change up the map a lot. Sure, but the map was not the problem last game. Dark wanted to start out the best of 3 with a good old punch to the face with a Ling Queen Nidus Worm. And Cure was all over it, man. It was like Dark had just done it to him. I mean, they must have played recently. Because even though you're like, well, it's Dark, and Dark does that build, and he does a bunch of cheesy shit. So of course Cure's going to be on guard. That's not how these pro gaming cheeses kind of work, in my opinion. Like, you could say that pro gamers have faced everything ever because they play so many games. They have faced all the cheeses, and they play against each other all the time, too. Like, our pool of pro gamers is unfortunately limited at this point, so they play against each other all the time. But the cheeses still work. The cheeses still work. The Nidus Ling has killed plenty of Terrans, Cure included. I don't know where this is coming from, but it can. And all you have to do at that point when it does work, and when you're like, oh, Cure didn't look for the Nidus Worm, that's unfortunate. He had no idea it was on the way. That's unfortunate. All you got to do is be like, well, he didn't face it recently. That is, it's a legitimate excuse. But as soon as you face one DT player on the ladder, your next 20 games, you're afraid of DTs. And then after those 20 games are done, you didn't get DT'd again, you're like, I guess I'm fine. Like, your brain just forgets it. And then you get DT'd in the 21st game. That's always how it happens, right? So, just throwing it out there, I don't think Dark is going to be discouraged from cheesing or all-inning, because he's got so many up his sleeve. But, you know, that Nidus Worm, it's not going to happen. Clearly, Cure is going to use the tools at his disposal to make sure he never dies to that. Now, what can happen is that Cure has revealed that he's particularly on guard for cheeses and all-ins. And Dark could try and use that to his advantage by being a little greedier. Because, for instance, when Cure was unsure what truly was happening, because I don't think he really ever got, like, a direct scout on it. He never saw the Nidus Worm. I don't think he saw a lack of fourth, but I could be wrong about that. It looked like he had been defending from minute 4. As in, his Hellions were at home, his Banshees were at home, and his Marines were rallied in base. And that just is no contest then on whatever the Zerg is doing, right? So, you know, it's not good to lose the first game and have that on your record now. But there might be something gained from it, too. If Cure continues playing that way, Dark could get away with more creep spread. Or maybe, for instance, like a Roach all-in might be a good idea against someone who's playing particularly defensive, because their lack of aggression is also lack of scouting. And we know that Dark has pretty good 1-1 Roach all-ins. And that's the only thing I would say is aggression-based that I would feel like would work, because any other type of cheese is not going to work. Cure is doing the safest thing possible. 3cc 111 with the Reaper, scouting for, excuse me, particularly early aggression. Obviously, you still got to cover your bases when it comes to any type of 2-base or pool first, something like that. But then 3cc, not only built in base, in natural, but still, it's also going to go into the safest location on El Dorado until the minerals are mined out. You cannot actually enter back here without air units. Dark is going to go for a 4-minute lair again. Well, not again. I think the lair was earlier last game. But he's going to go for a fast lair again. He's going to go mute us. Now, I don't think of Dark as a Muta player. No. Well, no. 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 Hey, I don't think of Dark as a Muta player, but, you know, we did have that little stint where it seemed like Mutas were coming back. On El Dorado, being the type of map that it is, Mutas can be really obnoxious. But yeah, just the combination of they're not meta. Dark isn't really a Muta player in my mind. Like, I'm not feeling it, but, I mean, it could be. Baneley Nest is down. That's going to be the protection that you need if you just go straight up to Spire. You can't, you know, try and go fast Spire as well as a couple double upgrades and no Baneley Nest. It is a Spire. I was like, everything in my belief of Dark says no, but the build was pointing yes, and I was caught in the middle waffling. But it is Mutas. Well, that is fun. All right, that is fun. So it officially is Mutas. That is really fun. That's going to be something that Cure might not scout for a long time. Going back to what I was discussing earlier, he is playing very defensive. Like, he's not trying to bust in with the Hellions and get some type of scout slash drone kills. So he's not going to scout the Spire. He's not going to scout, you know, lack of evolution chambers. The gases, he's probably also not going to scout, right? Almost for sure. You know, you don't often get your Banshees into every base's gas scout. The Banshees are awfully close to it. Not going to test the waters, knowing that Queens are probably ready to get on them as soon as they go into Spore Crawler range. So Dark is going to get away with the Spire here. Kira did take the bottom side base, but it was for the gold, as you can do, as you can see here. And then once that's mined out, you can take this base, and while you have made another opening for the Zerg player to attack you, it's still very well defended. Very well defended. Gonna mine out the minerals on the top side, actually, and use that to be aggressive. You could try to mine out your opponent's minerals so you can get some really abusive push, but they should never let you do that. I mean, I feel like it is possible, but they should really not let you do that. And Kira is probably thinking, there's no way he's gonna let me do that. It's gonna stop the creep spread from coming down this far, which is always a good maneuver. Mutas are on the way, again, totally undetected. Kira has no idea about this. No missile turrets. And he's still building tanks. I mean, no missile turrets is the #1 problem right now, but if he's going to continue producing tanks, it's not necessarily what you... I mean, it's not bad. I mean, you know, historically, Marine tank is totally fine against Mutas, but Widowmons did get introduced, and they are pretty good, and usually you would go them as well. At least as well, right? But the second factory isn't down yet. 4th CC actually going to come down on location. Mutas are finally going to make their appearance, and Cure is going to go, oh, shit, right, that's an option. And so while he was totally anticipating the Nidus Worm cheese, he had no idea about the Mutas, and you know, I was thinking the 1/1 Roach, because that would be, if Cure didn't know about the 1/1 Roach until the moment it attacked, like that could actually kill the Terran, right? Mutas, even if they're undetected, they're not necessarily going to kill the Terran, so there's the good news, but it is a complete surprise. Curious didn't think that he'd have to worry about that. The attack on the front also did not work out. I believe he only sent 1 medevac out, though. Yeah, so it's not like he lost a bunch for the attack on the front. It is absolutely more the 14 SCVs and the surprise of the Mutas, because this just kind of changes your approach. The loss of the SCVs is not the biggest of deals, particularly because the 4th CC is already down. You've already invested the 400 minerals there. But even without it, you know, 14 SCVs is something a Terran could recover from, let's be real. But it does really change up your perception of how you're going to tackle this game. And if your instinct is to go, okay, they got Mutas, they're kind of weak in a direct battle, let me go and attack this guy. Well, that one thing that the Zerg player does besides build Mutas is get creep spread, baneling speed. And 1-1 is done, so it's not like he fell behind in the upgrades. But Cure is not going to take the approach that he actually carved out for himself. He did mine this out. It looks like the Zerg was mining out the gold on the backside. Again, would not mind the attempt to push through here. And is instead trying to deal with the mutas. Well, at this point, you know, Cure actually might have thought about pushing out, thinking there might be a time when the Zerg player is not maxed, and I can try and take some advantageous position. When you are forced to defend, waffle, you kind of have to admit the Zerg player is probably maxed out. And it's not that you can't push into a maxed out Zerg player if you're also maxed out, of course, but it might be better to wait for the Zerg player to come to you. And then once the Zerg player actually decides, okay, they're not coming after me, I can't push into them because they're playing really defensive, I'm going to go into Hive, that's when the push from the Terran becomes a little bit scarier. So that might be what Cure is waiting for. Unfortunately, all that waiting for, you know, the attack to come, for the mutas to fly by, is still killing SCVs. He's still losing 21 SCVs. The good news is he does have 4 orbitals, didn't find the need for a planetary, so he can get the mining back up and running with mules. Right, there's the push on the south side. This is going to be very tricky for Dark to take care of. We're funneling through this one choke. Is he really going to try and force the issue? Whoa! It kills more Marines than it probably should have, and the tanks do go down on the front. Only 1 left over. But Banelings were left as well, so there's no way for Cure to pounce on a defenseless Zerg. More connections being made. Another tank taken out. More Banelings. Really crucial here, but they are being made and in time. As far as the push to the south goes, I feel like that actually could have been better. And now Cure has no splash against so much Ling Baneling. Wah! He's given up entirely and trying to macro out of this. After the SCVs were killed, did not bother replacing them. He never started up 2-2. And this was Cure being led by the nose, is what it feels like. He got so surprised by the mutas and then didn't have any timings that really worked for him. And then I was like, well, maybe I can just defend. And then, well, no, I kind of have to push. And all that time is when the Zerg player is recovering from a rather, less than economical opener, the kind of fast mutas. It's all that time that they're building up the 4th base and all the drones and getting their upgrades and getting their Baneling speed and getting to a maxed out army, waiting for the Terran to push. That was that wasn't really a contest, is what it felt like at the end there. We're on Frostline for Game 3, however. In the top right, it is Cure. In the bottom left, it is Dark. Dark's Muta Gambit worked out very well. I mean, some of the best that I've seen mutas work in a while. Because, again, they're not meta, despite that little month or something that we had where it seemed like a lot of Zerg players are going mutas. It's not meta. And when we say not meta, we're not just pointing our pinky fingers out and saying, well, this is how StarCraft is meant to be played, and if you don't do it, then you're dumb. It's not meta because it usually isn't good. That is why something falls out of the meta. It isn't good. Mutas kind of fall under that category. But I do like seeing them. I do think they still have some potential. And I do like them as a surprise tactic, which it definitely was last game. But then not only that, it really felt like it just totally threw off Cure's groove. Cure was grooving to some music while building his 4th command center, thinking, haha, this is going to be a macro game. It's going to be a great macro game. I'm going to kill some Ling Baneling Ultra. It's going to be great. And then mutas showed up. And that it felt like it really threw Cure off. From his defenses being a little lackluster. At the end of that game, I think he had lost upwards to 40 SCVs from the mutas. His aggression that he had planned also was completely thrown off. I'm sure before those mutas arrived, he probably had a plan for how exactly he was going to move out, when he was going to move out, how he was going to move out, how he was going to siege his tanks, how he was going to anticipate the Zerg attack into his attack, And the mutas really do throw you for a loop, because it's not just the mutas that change up things, it's also the playstyle with the mutas. You know, very rarely, I would say, do Zerg players try and go mutas, first of all. Second of all, try to go mutas, and then immediately go into ultras. That is an alternative option. If you predict that the Terran player is going to do nothing but sit back against you, you can say, okay, I'm going to take this chance and like dive straight to Hive and ultras. And that can be a bit of the struggle on both sides, honestly, right? The Terran player doesn't quite know at times if they're going to go into ultras or if they're just building non-stop link bailing muta, ready to attack you wave after wave after wave. And that can cause the indecision on the Terran side as to whether or not they should push or pull. And I think that's exactly what happened last game. Kira was like, I'm going to push. No, hold on. I'm gonna wait, and he's going to counterattack me. Okay, counterattack, but it actually kind of did a lot of damage. And then, well, now I got to push, and oh, God, I lost all my SCVs. Okay, well, okay. And then it just felt like he had deflated even before the engagement happened. I am almost positive it won't happen this time around. Dark throwing out the book of builds here. Nidus Worm was a complete failure. The Muta twist, I think, was perfect for the scenario that I had described with roaches, but still like kind of the same idea with mutas. Something that Kira was not going to scout, particularly with his defensive setup, and then was going to be surprised by. And then we got game 3, where I'm sure Dark is going to throw out something completely different as well. Because I can tell you, Kira is not throwing out anything different. Kira, not the type of Terran player who often says, I am losing, I have to change things up drastically. In this matchup, anyway. I think he does a lot more in the other matchups. But in this matchup, it feels like Kira goes, I'm losing. I think I can improve on some macro front. So back to 3CC, and then I'm going to change up my Hellion usage. You're going to be aggressive instead of defensive. I'm going to maybe not go Banshees, although he is in this game. I'm going to 8 racks instead of 4CC. I'm going to do the 2 tank push instead of playing a little more defensive. You know, like that's what he changes up. Not so much, okay, I'm losing, let's go for a proxy 2 racks. Which I haven't seen one in a while at this point. I thought the win rate was insane. We already have those first 2 Hellions being far more aggressive, I believe, than any previous game, right? The Reaper is always scouted in both games, but this is the first time I think those first 2 Hellions immediately moved out. This can be a little dangerous, just because you can be overwhelmed with Lings with 2 Hellions, if that's something these are built. Dark's not building Lings, he's building drones. He is taking the opportunity to get away with macro right now, although he's, again, going for very fast lair. Yeah. I'd be so surprised if the mutas work this game, though. Because even though they're a more macro surprise, it's still something that now Kira's like, oh, right, okay, gotcha. Yeah, mutas are a thing I need to worry about. Okay. It's not mutas, never mind. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm glad to see that. I think the map isn't as good for them, and I think the surprise factor is totally gone. But, yeah, so a couple of faster upgrades for the Zerg player as the drones continue being produced. 4th hatchery is on the way, something scouted by the Hellions. So far, no important damage being done. 3 drones from the Banshees, no big deal. Double engineering bay on the way for Cure. After his barracks, 3rd CC on location. Using the Hellions aggressively again, kind of opens up that 3rd CC to some run-bys, but Dark just never made that many Lings. And most of the Hellions did stay at home anyway. Those first 2 Hellions with the Reaper, really great scouting. And then if you want to continue scouting, at least on the front lines of the Zerg, then it's into the Banshees, can do a little scouting as well. But at this point, kind of double, triple confirming that it's not going to be a bunch of roaches headed across the map would be one of the scarier things to happen at this time. The Baneley Nest was actually not seen. So at this point in time, Kira's kind of in the dark. He sees a macro hatchery, and that is it. Doesn't even see the lair, which is in the natural, actually. It is Infestation Pit. It's going to be Fast Hive. I guess he's going to go into that Fast Ultra that he did in the first game, kind of, sort of. And Kira's not going to realize that for a little bit. And you could say, well, he could just scan, couldn't he? Well, Terran players are notoriously greedy, so no. But it would be a good guess that the natural is the one where the technology is. And Kira could scan it, he's just not going to. We actually got extra barracks already on the way, so Kira is going to 3 racks 8 3cc 8 racks. There we go. Those are the numbers. There's the final racks coming down. Dark had been supply blocked. Ugh. Very unfortunate timing. The push is on the way. Starting to bank up a few too many minerals to look comfortable against this push. Upgrades are almost done for both parties. Combat shields a little later. But the tank's going to get into a good position. The armory, not quite done. So if Dark was ready right now, he could jump on top of this without Hellbats to worry about. But it looks like he might not be able to. Hellbats could be a part of this push. Dark once again supply blocks, by the way. This is the worst time to have that happen. Does he have enough to handle this? 1-1 upgrade advantage, no longer here. But the Hellbats did not play a part. The Hellions, not nearly as scary. Not nearly as good. I do have Dark clean things up before it got worse, frankly. I'm going to nip it in the bud. Prior to the Hellbats being involved, prior to the combat shields being involved, and basically prior to the upgrades being involved, too. It's kind of a perfect timing, despite back-to-back supply blocks. But on the one hand, Dark handled that better than I thought he could. Kier also... I mean, that's kind of par for the course, I want to say, for a Terran player's push, actually. Could have done better, sure, but it's not about that one push. It's about the next one and the next one, and whether or not Dark is always prepared for it with enough Banelings in the right position. His Ultras will not be in play for a long time. He's got to wait for the Cavern to finish, then Ultras need their armor. That's going to take a long time. But it's still something that Kier isn't totally aware of. I mean, for all he knows, there's a Hydralist end about to build a bunch of Hydras. I think at this point he'd actually figure it out, to be fair, but that it would be the timer then for him. Hatchery does go down, but Dark has a run by, killing at least a dozen SCVs, I want to say. Medivacs took out the hatchery, now going into the main base. Double Spore Crawler trying to stop this from happening, just so ever slightly out of position. That's very unfortunate. Banelings crashing into the supply depots, but now have entirely exhausted their attack? Just about, so the reinforcements could come in. Cure, maybe a little all over the place, trying to both attack and defend, is not paying attention to the most crucial locations, doesn't pay attention to the drop, and was late to paying attention in the natural, and still has yet to clean up the third. This is a really good moment for Dark, because all of this chaos is happening when he is grabbing all these upgrades. If Cure still had his army on the front lines, knocking down this hatchery and then looking for the next domino to fall, this would be very scary for Dark. Rallying into this choke with like a couple of tanks and whatever else would be scary. But now he has bought the time to get to Ultras with chitinous plating, with 2-2, and as well as having a supply lead overall. Kier is the one that needs to recover a little bit, but he is 8-raxing, so economy is not really what he was hoping to look for. This is a lot of Lings with 2-2, gonna finish up against only 2-1 by the looks of it. Lings in the main base, not just killing these SCVs, but then also interrupting all of the production. That's the real kick in the nuts right there. Oh my god. Wow, Kier is falling apart. Doesn't even lift the command center. He's not even gonna wait for the actual engagement. Whoa. Kier kind of getting smacked around a little bit, honestly. The first game was just a total, blind counter, actually. Like, he just was ready for it. But the next two games, that was the Kier I was afraid to see, actually. Nerf Zerglin. Wasn't Zerg's fault that Kier lost. Well, I mean, literally it was, but... Discord's new update kind of freaks me out. On one hand, I like that you now have the channels up when you look at a channel. On the other hand, I don't know. The servers are smaller and it's freaking me out. Fresh best of 3 PvP. I'm gonna check out some Korean PvP. In the top right we have Hero. In the bottom left we have Classic. This is a classic matchup. Yes, pun was intended, but it is very much a classic matchup. The last few years, I would say, since Classic came back from the military. That was after Hero, wasn't it? Either way, they both went to military and they came back. And ever since then, we have had PvPs between these two. The staples of the Korean scene Prodosses, for sure. Some of the other Prodosses we used to see don't play as much, like Creator. And never had as many consistent results. Wasn't really seen as the savior of Protoss at any time either. I mean, Creator had his moments. I mean, he was a fun guy to watch, but he never... The times at which you were like, okay, Creator's the one leading the charge was very limited. Whereas Hero had, obviously, the PvZ, where a lot of people gave him credit for revolutionizing the matchup. And then Classic also had his credit in PvT, I believe, around that Gamers 8 tournament, actually, as well, mentioned earlier in some casts. But that beats the two best Protoss in the Korean scene. And they are also two particularly cheesy Protoss. They're very aggressive, both of them capable of all types of cheeses and all lins. And PvP just encourages that twofold, threefold, fivefold, whatever. Hero did go for a pylon out in the map, but it is, as of so far, a fake. It might not be a fake, though. That probe is returning. 2 Adepts take up the gas, accumulate the gas once again for a proxy Stargate. Stargate is on the way for Classic, however, and if Classic picks up on the potential of a proxy Stargate, you should never scout it, but he's gonna pick. He already's picked up on the lack of pylon, right? He's already like, you got a pylon missing. Okay, cool. It could be anything. When he sees that it's also a depths, that might also lean more to the Stargate. It's not guaranteed that it is a Stargate because of a depths, or that it's a depths because it's a Stargate. Everyone want to slice it, but it's kind of a hint. And as such, Classic does have the opportunity to build a Phoenix, but it would be blind. Okay, that's one thing I was not expecting. I was like, you could try and build a Phoenix and try and really, blind counter this, and that'd be cool. Or an Oracle, which would be the usual thing you build from a Stargate, and then, it's a little sketch as to whose Oracle does more damage. A Void Ray... Color me surprised. I was not expecting this. Okay, so the thing is, again, he does not know what the proxy is. He knows that there is a high chance that there is actually a proxy. Not a simple pylon, but something that is actually there. Out in the map. These Adepts are doing damage. More damage than they should. That's some... okay, three probes killed apiece. Fair's fair. Hero's the one who got the bigger scout, however, sees his opponent go for the Void Ray. So the Void Ray could be because Classic doesn't know if this is Proxy Stargate or Proxy Robo. Unfortunately, it is Proxy Stargate, and Void Ray isn't exactly what you want against it. Obviously, it can kill the Oracle, as you can see. It would kill it pretty quickly, even. It's just that it's not very mobile. The Oracle has already done the damage it was looking for, and it survived. 7 probes killed. Hero's double Oracle action going to continue just... dipping in and out, and the Void Rays can't catch up. So it does look like basically Classic did go for a kind of blind counter. It just was not the best blind counter. Oracle does... I don't think it actually wanted to suicide there, but forced to. 4 more probes go down. This one Oracle is going to be a little bit more careful. He did see the second Void Ray on the way, so it just is a matter of thinking it was out of position. But, it's not just that the Void Rays haven't done a great job defending the Oracles. It's also that Void Rays are, I would say, less helpful as the game goes on. Yeah, they're a direct attacker. They're not a harasser. They attack or defend, right? So there is that. If Hero tries to move in with only 10 Stalkers, the 2 Void Rays will be helpful, sure. But a lot of the game is going to go down to, nimbleness, controlling the map, using blink correctly, timing out your expansions. And Void Rays aren't going to be as good as Oracles for all the scouting and stasis trap and harassment they can do. The Void Rays are good at just trying to attack you, and that's exactly what Clax is going to try and do. He knows the Void Rays have a limited amount of time to help. He's going to go for the attack. One Void Ray does go down, but it's already killed 3 Stalkers. Looking at 4, looking at 5. Stalkers need to be reinforced here. Probes pull to deal with the ground forces, but it looks like it will just barely be enough. And with that, Classic is forced to tap out. Down by 13 workers. He knew that was a last-ditch attempt. Hero wins game 1. After chewing on my papers and ruining a photograph, Wicket's looking as cute as can be, sleeping in the sun right now. It's amazing what cats can do. Now we have game 2. Ow, son of a gun. Here we go. Here it is. There it is. Was it a pile on your shelf? Is that buyable somewhere? I don't think it is buyable anymore. It was something you could purchase, which is how I got it. Pretty sure I actually bought it. But I don't think it's available anymore. It is really cool. It actually lights up. It's just that the plug is kind of borked. So even when it's plugged in, it has to be the exact right position, and then it lights up. It's also a charger, so it lights up, and then it could charge your phone or something as a nightlight. But yeah. As far as pylons you can buy, U-Tunes, or whatever that company is called, is producing a plushie pylon. So, not as cool, but... Whispers of Gold, by the way, top left hero, bottom right classic. Classic didn't know exactly what was being proxied. He did have a pretty strong suspicion that it was proxied something or another, but the purchase of choice from his own Stargate was unideal. If the Void Array had literally just stayed in the main on top of the probes, then it probably would have been a fine anti-Oracle defense. And then the question of whether it's worth it as the game goes on is still around, but the Oracle doesn't do nearly enough damage. But it didn't. It moves slightly out of position. It thinks it needs to be on the defense on the front of the natural, and then suddenly the main is ripe for the picking. And that's what happened. And it just kind of sucks. I mean, it's kind of a gamble. Then again, he could have... you could argue it's an unnecessary gamble, because he could have gotten his own Oracle and then just gotten a shield battery. Although maybe not in time, because it was a proxy Oracle. It's unfortunate. It's frustrating, because you could have had a much better response to the situation. But Hero is a clever little guy. And one thing that Classic also missed, by the way, I'm not sure this would have influenced the way the game played out enough, but when he got that Adept into the main of Hero that did the 3 probe kills, he managed to just barely miss the fact that the Nexus was down. And again, I'm not sure about the timing, but, if that Adept had instead scouted the Nexus was on the way, it would have confirmed that it wasn't an all-in. It wasn't a proxy robo. It was most likely a proxy Stargate. But all it confirmed was that there was no technology in the main, which just kind of further increases your suspicion that it's something that's very dedicated. So very unfortunate there as well. Little pylon block from Hero to be A, annoying, B, scouting, sees that it's Adepts, sees the very, very much, very intended Nexus. That Adept just further confirms that. When the pylon's down, it's already a good idea of what they're doing, but... Adept gets in the main. The hallucination from Hero had already scouted everything it really needed to scout. Just a little bit to the left, buddy. Just a little bit to the left, buddy. Just a little bit to the left, buddy. Okay, I won't scout the robo. Hey! A little bit to the left. So yeah, now Hero has seen everything he needs to see. The same kind of idea, though, is that Classic also saw a lot what he needed to see even before these Adepts got into the main. Gonna kill 3 probes and still force out energy from the sentries. Not that I think it'll influence this game, but Classic is not going for any type of forward maneuver. Sometimes you see little pokes, you know, very small number of units that are trying to take advantage of the time of which a Protoss player is trying to save for production, technology, or probes and chrono probes. And that's kind of more what Hero is doing. But now he has less force fields, so it still works. It's an aggression versus a defensive position, but still, he has less force fields. Yeah, Classic got the scout on the whole of the setup for Hero with his Adepts. He also saw that his opponent had built a sentry for hallucinations. That already kind of told you he wasn't going to attack you. But now they almost know everything. Almost. Classic did miss the Twilight Council. That is the most expected follow-up. And the Robo is actually the outlier here. But Hero does scout the Robo. Is going to see the Warp Prism? Not quite. Classic does want to leave him guessing on what's popping out of that Robo. Is it something... Is it an Immortal that's just going to be super, super defensive? It can move out across the map, but, you know, it's not quite the same as having a Warp Prism fly out, right? It does look like this is going to confirm it was a Warp Prism anyway. Just the fact that it is taking so long to produce one unit. He might have seen it stop and start. It's like, okay, well, what isn't here? It's a Warp Prism. Warp Prism flew on by. And that's going to be just some harassment. But yeah, it's going to be into Immortal. I mean, Classic... He's going to have the less mobile army. It doesn't mean he can't attack. It just means it's going to be less mobile. And this is one of the most classic matchups we had in past tense, which is kind of question of whether Blink really was the bread and butter of PvP, or if it did have a weakness to something like Charge or Mortal Archon. But time has definitely been on Blink's side. It is usually the better thing to do. It's just more flexible in a lot of ways. And if you're depending on your Warp Prism for any amount of scouting and harassment and time buying, and for, you know, actually doing a push with it, well, Blink Stalkers are also good at dealing with Warp Prisms. So, yeah, this is a bit dangerous for Classic, who hasn't really been rewarded as of yet. The Adepts are going to consistently shark around, and Hero is actually moved entirely out of position. Hallucination is going to reveal a very strong army waiting in the natural, something that Hero absolutely cannot tackle. And while he's going to try, okay. He is going to try. He's also losing probes. That Immortal on the front is not going down. Force fields coming from both players. Ends up favoring Classic, for sure. Even though the Stalkers have Blink, it still leaves limited room to Blink. And if they blink just purely defensively, then they're not killing the Immortal. If they blink offensively, they're more committed than they usually would be, thanks to the force fields. That was not very good there from Hero, who, like I said, was also losing probes behind this. 11 probes going down in total. Now, Hero does have a third. So making up for the probe losses at that particular junction, not that difficult to do. Third Nexus is still pretty damn good to have. Don't think it has quite lost him the game completely, but it has put him into a pretty rotten position, I think. Classic's third Nexus, while slower, should be dependable. Should be able to get that up, no problem. And then his army is going to have a longer period of time, I think, where it really is just better. When the Stalkers don't suicide like they did and are now doing, then having, let's say, 15 Stalkers on the field, even more actually, you would have had like 20 Stalkers on the field, makes any move out from the slow army of Classic pretty dangerous. But it is very easy to move out on the map when there's only 12 Stalkers. And they're defending Adept harassment that keeps on coming in. Now, those Adepts weren't nearly as impressive. None Adepts going down so far. We're getting like spikes of good and spikes of bad, I think, from the Warp Prism. But overall, it's getting scouting, it's getting pressure, it's staying alive, right? It's for the eventual push that is going to come with Classic's +2 Resonating Glaives. Interesting, you went Resonating Glaives here instead of Charge. Because he's definitely not doing any type of, well, I shouldn't say that. Wait. Another potential suicide of Hero. He is going to grab one Immortal, but he's going to lose so many Stalkers. Classic going Charge also would have been fine, right? Depths are a little more expensive, but they are more mobile. It is going to make the harassing Adepts more efficient. And the Adept versus Charge interaction can be totally fine. So that's what Classic is going for. And he's going for 3 base attack. If the Warp Prism got recalled, it should probably get recalled. Is he going to try and slip it out? A little dangerous, but it might work. +2 attack is almost done for Classic. He's almost saturated on his 3 bases. It's not him who's attacking, though. It's Hero. What is there to say about that one? That didn't work. It feels like Hero... So he's playing a game as if nothing had gone wrong in his game. I think is a way to put it. The first engagement he ever had, if it had gone better, if he had actually pushed the Immortals forward with the force fields and sniped 1 or 2, saved his own Stalkers, and then continued playing these kind of poke prod games, I'm sure it works. But it's like he's playing a game that actually hasn't played out. You know, he's going through all the motions of the game where he didn't take this many probe losses, where he didn't lose that many Stalkers, where he did hamper Classic's build-up to this army, and it's just not working. He did not snowball enough on his side, for sure. I mean, it's really Classic snowballing at this point. And the 40 supply difference, I think, is telling a lot here. Warp Prism does finally join in with the army. The very last second. I thought that was going to come in much earlier, but didn't have to. Saves the Immortal even. Little micro, just to show off a bit, and that is game 2 to Classic. Thank you, Mr. Chaz, for the 35 months. And the last game of this best of 3, bottom left, Hero, top right, Classic on Ultra Love. Why is it Ultra? No one knows. Tomorrow I'm taking care of some kitties. And one of them is a tripod. I'm very excited. Stream it. Ultra's going to be played, that's why it's Ultra Love. We're going to have the first game where both of them go for the low ground expansion. This is a map that has a ramp on the natural, so this is the most likely map to do it. And it does look like this is actually a Nexus. No attempt to get a second gateway and change up the dynamic in the early game. Now it's about the probe blocks, of which both players successfully getting the block thus far. I don't think either player really does any of the early game shield battery shenanigans like Max Pax does. I think Hero tried. And I want to say he failed at it. Max Pax, one of the few guys who actually does that. So this really is just about who can delay the Nexus. And it looks like Classic would ultimately win that battle with the Zealot being produced, although it was canceled. We're back to the safety Zealot that used to exist in 2010 and 11 for very different reasons, but we're back to it where you have to get the Zealot in case of the pylon block, but if you successfully deny the pylon block, then you can cancel the Zealot. And that's what happened there. So Classic, he did leave. That's kind of unfortunate, like, because I feel like he could have blocked it further, and then he still would have lived against a Zealot, and then he would have forced the Zealot to actually pop out, right? But I guess then he would have had to produce a pylon, which would have delayed his Nexus. I'm sure there's some reason. But it means that both players' Nexus are coming down equally timed. Stargates as well. No one was forced to get that faster. Phoenix versus Phoenix is usually the name of the game here. There's always that one person, often a guy like Trigger, maybe like a North American who's weird and wacky, am I right, guys? Who will occasionally try and go for the surprise Oracle. Now that would be a surprise Oracle if the probe wasn't scouting. So you gotta make sure that's that happens first, and the probe did finally die. But everyone has scouted that it is Phoenix. It's Phoenix versus Phoenix. There's no questions here. And the only question is whether or not it continues to be Phoenix versus Phoenix. Shield battery actually coming down for Hero in the main. I guess he did not confirm that it was Phoenix. I thought he did. Yeah, he did.
I have met the enemy.
I wasn't wrong about that. Maybe still a little scared. Maybe it was an Oracle before that. Maybe he only scouted it recently. But the shield battery was canceled, so he did, figure things out. The shield battery, can be helpful if you take a defensive Phoenix versus Phoenix fight. But kind of the goal of Phoenix versus Phoenix is just to never have a truly defensive fight. If you need to have one, yes. But you basically want to always have the same amount of Phoenix as your opponent. And defender's advantage in the form of Phoenix producing on your side of the map should be much better than any shield battery you add on, which is really just a waste of minerals a lot of time. Unfortunately, Phoenix of Classic do get into the main of Hero and kill 3 probes, but it's only unfortunate if the Phoenix of Classic end up surviving, and it looks like they will. Oh, maybe I spoke a little too soon. They're reinforcing Hero Phoenix, coming in hot. Could have microed that one Phoenix away. I'm going to be critical here because it is Phoenix versus Phoenix. A 2 Phoenix lead, potentially, if that one injured one was pulled back. Could have been big. Now, it is a 1 Phoenix lead, 1.5, 1.25, something like that. But that is about the defender's advantage of producing the Phoenix at your home. So, Hero is going to at least take the lead that he does have and push it. Although he needs to be careful. Classic's 2 Phoenix about to pop out here. Hero will not be able to beat that. He's reinforcing from long distance. He's killed 4 probes. He did not get a probe on his opponent's side of the map. I thought for sure that was going to be the next thing coming. That is really annoying in Phoenix versus Phoenix Wars. And I think you see the European players do that a lot more than the Korean ones, because you also see the Phoenix Wars more often in Europe. But it looks like my time to explain Phoenix Wars might be coming to an end. I mean, it's only 2 Phoenix, but that's sometimes all it takes. Classic, being entirely reset to 0, is forced to make some concessions here. He's going to grab a shield battery, just really a desperate maneuver, because even if it's done, it might not be enough. Not with Hero rallying his Phoenix around the map now, and there's no hesitation here, right? There usually would be if Hero was up against 1 or 2 remaining Phoenix. He would be a little more hesitant to try and camp the Stargates, but when it's completely reset, he just camps the Stargates. And again, I'm not sure the shield battery is going to help out enough. I think Classic is, I think he's screwed. Yes, he is. GG's. And it really all started with the dive into the main for those 3 probes. Lost him the game. There's Phoenix for you. GG's. Maybe a cannon. You don't usually grab a forge that fast with this. Because obviously you're not upgrading anything important. I am going to take a little break, guys. And when we come back, we'll cast 1 or 2 more best of 3s, I think. Huh, my camera is not working anyway. Cat cam. Hello. Hi, Sig. Siggy says hi. I don't know if you could hear him. Meow. Where are you going? Oh, okay. What you doing there, Ziggy? You got your piggy tail. Here's my Ziggy piggy. Goodbye. Alright. Let's see. 2 more best ofs. What should we do here? We'll cast some Max Packs, which you haven't cast nearly as much of recently because he hasn't made it to the finals. Yeah, I know, Siggy. Can you believe it? Max Packs hasn't made it to the finals. It's shocking. Frostline for game 1 of this TVP. In the bottom left for Psystorm, he is Max Pax. And in the top right for the Rebellion, he is Bjorn. Thankfully, despite the unknown that is StarCraft 2 esports, we still have a lot of teams dedicated to supporting the scene. We do have an SCV out and about. So, I don't think I really need to go over their backstories here. You all recognize the name Max Pax, one of the best Protoss in the world, and the name Bjorn, one of the biggest fan favorite Terrans to have played StarCraft over the last 15 years, and also a guy who can absolutely cheese. Not known, I think, necessarily as a cheesy player, but you know he can. And this is a bit of a cheese. It's not really the strongest one, though. I am looking at, I think, a Reaper proxy, so it is right up on in there. That'll be the fastest Reaper you could possibly get. But it's not like it's a 2 racks with the proxy Marauder, which would be far cheesier. MaxPax is going to send a Probe Scout, because that's what most Protoss do, and Beyond should anticipate that, not be surprised by it. And it is going to confirm, hey, there's no barracks. Ooh, as you look. But it's also going to be able to tell, I think, that it's, you know, it's not anything super serious, super serial. Thought Roddy was one of the best Protoss players in the world. In your heart. And many people say heart is the most important. Cybernetic score does come down before Nexus, which I think it typically does. I mean, it doesn't have to, but it typically does. And in this case, it very much is important that it does. You're not going to change up your build significantly just because of a little tiny proxy Reaper. It's just a little thing. It's not even that big of a deal. I mean, when it is this close and you are facing one of the world's best Reaper micros, then you should be a little scared. But as a reminder, 3 probes is pretty good for this. You can kill 3 probes with this Reaper. It's a decent opener for the Terran, yeah. 4 is when the Protoss really start to shake their heads at themselves. 2 is when Protoss is kind of happy with their defense, I think. And then if you can only lose 1 probe, then you're just like, haha, what an idiot. What an idiot. Oh my god, I can't believe the Terran proxy Reaper. What a dumbass. And that's currently where we're at. This was not a follow-up second Reaper, by the way. So this was just the 1 Reaper, and it only killed 1 probe. MaxPax should be very happy with the defense here. Very happy. I don't think MaxPax is the type of guy to, you know, call his opponent his dumbass, even jokingly. But if this was my ladder game, 100% I'd be calling my opponent. Oh, second probe died. It was the scouting probe. Feels like a bit of a technicality, but now you can't laugh as much as at Beyond. Beyond did go for factory behind this, of course. You kind of have to. And the Cyclone is on the way. That will help protect him. Basically, at the beginning, he might combo this up with some units eventually, but right now it is a little more worrisome as to what MaxPax can throw your way since your barracks is not producing at all. And the Reaper is the only form of defense you would have, so the Cyclone is very much a necessity. MaxPax has gone into Blink. The question now is he go into 4-gate Blink. Now, he stopped 4-gating all the time, but he brings it back, let's say, once every dozen to 2 dozen games. And otherwise, it's a 3-gate, and this guy's 2-gate expand is 1 every 2 dozen, I think. So, it is most likely 3-gate. And that's something that Beyond should know. These guys who face each other quite a bit, because Beyond does play in all of these tournaments. Robo is down. Another gateway's on the way. That is 3 gateways. Yep, 3 gateways. And the Reaper, as I believe, scouted the... No, it actually hasn't. It could. Because it just needs to go into the natural at this point. So, you know, it's pretty much confirmed. Pretty much. That it's only 1 gateway in the main. If it got into the natural, it could count them all up. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But... if you could confirm a 4-gate, you get 2 bunkers, I think. 100%. 4-gate, take it super seriously. Get 2 bunkers on the front, even a bunker in your main. 3-gate, you're still going to take it pretty seriously. Because it is MaxPax, and he is good with it, and he often includes a War Prism with it. So, you could... I mean... I'd be scared of this. If this was the War Prism, which for once it's not... I mean, MaxPax almost always gets a War Prism with this 3-gate. I would be kind of scared for Beyond's defenses, honestly. Okay, he's building a bunker.
Credits received. Thank you for your monitoring.
That makes me a little less scared, but it's not an attack anyway, so
Always great
not even
to
worth talking
hear
about.
Your commentary.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Chaz with the $10 Renos. Appreciate your support, dude. Thank you. Mr. Chaz, very consistent. Good guy. But yeah, the bunker just makes me feel a little bit better about this, even though, again, MaxPax isn't dedicating really much at all. I mean, this 3-gate, when the 3-gate doesn't come along with the War Prism, it kind of leans more to almost like a defensive setup, which is that you can build enough units to defend against some of the trickier things Terrans can do on 2 bases. And that's fair, because Beyond has shown a couple of 2-base attacks. He's done a 3-1, for instance, all-in versus Clem, funnily enough. Clem plays Protoss. So, I could see the respect there, but no War Prism, no aggression. So he does get his third Nexus about as fast, almost as fast as a 2-gate, really. He did add the third gateway, so 150 minerals, and he did go up to 8 Stalkers, so that's a couple of warp-ins maybe that happened before the Nexus, but I don't think it was a lot, actually. I think these are all, a lot of them were post-Nexus built, so I'm trying to say it's very streamlined. Streamlined, 3-base, macro build from Max Packs. Now building the Warp Prism, though. He is looking for the ability to harass, distract, and annoy. I might hate it. I play both Protoss and Terran, but I would say the aggravation I feel from either race, it's definitely more aggravation from Protoss shit. When I play Protoss versus Terran, I'm not nearly as frustrated. But when it comes to the other matchup, Warp Prism is one of the easiest ways to tilt any Terran, in my opinion. Any of them. Even the pro gamers. Even if you literally fly a Warp Prism into a Missile Turret and a Widow Mine and dies instantly. Get a second Warp Prism. So I've always liked that Max Pax did that, and he's going to have that backup opportunity. He might need all of his units on the front lines, however, as the push is coming from Bjorn. He has waited diligently for all of his upgrades to finish, including +1 and Marauder Slow. He is not going to be caught up by surprise, however, as tanks siege up, because of course he was scouted from basically minute 1 of the push, and instead he's going to try and do something a little bit trickier. He's got 2 medevacs heading towards the main, but the Liberator just got pushed back by the looks of things, and the Observer was there to scout this anyway. So it kind of looks like the Liberator dipped in and then realized there was an open opportunity and dipped out in exchange for the medevac, but it was not nearly... Oh, God. Oh, Everyone just look away at this second, actually. Because it's not only the medevacs being destroyed, it's the Zealots getting into the main for a little combo of bad for Bjorn right now. You ordered the #1 combo, and it gave you a foot sandwich. And you're like, damn, that is not what I thought I was ordering. Only good thing for Bjorn right now is that he got to cancel on a 4th base. That's hardly enough. He is still on 2 bases himself. His 3rd CC not even halfway done. Max Pax is not totally reliant on gateway armies either, which may have been one of the weaknesses. Although I think he could have gotten enough of an army to deal with Terrans. It would have been a little sketchier without the Colossus. But he has Colossus. He's about to have 2 Colossus. Stalkers are coming in from an odd pathway. Some of them do go down, but here's the full might of the Protoss army, and it does match and is even superior to the Terrans. More Zealots running in as well, ensuring that Bjorn is all in on this push. And it would not surprise me if Bjorn taps out before the push even happens. Bjorn's not usually that guy, though, so I think he'll do the push. We do not need a psychic to tell us what's going to happen here. I heard a Liberator. I don't see a Liberator. I think it just died. Didn't do very much. 4th base isn't even necessary, and we do have a tap out before the engagement really happened. GG's. Max Pax in total control for that game. Game number 2 on Whispers of Gold. Bottom right, Max Pax. Top left, Bjorn. Kind of an ugly game for Bjorn. Soup to nuts. Reaper was not impressive. It only technically got 2 probes, and I'd hardly even count that. But even with it, it's not exactly the damage you want from a proxy Reaper. No follow-up really was able to be achieved from that either. Just had to worry about defending his natural that was later. And then his push... stop before it began. I don't even know. I don't even know what you tell Bjorn after a game like that. You did good, champ. And then take him out to Dairy Queen for some ice cream. Fortunately, Bjorn is not so easily discouraged. He is a workhorse, an extremely competitive person who also manages to be nice. You know, sometimes I hear from other esports, because, yeah, people in StarCraft don't care. But from other esports, I hear these analysts and they're like excusing really terrible behavior from some pro gamers because that's just how a competitor is. Yeah, the same thing in traditional sports as well. You know, a lot of excuses for Michael Jordan being a bit of a dick to his teammates because, well, he was really good at the game. But then I think of all these pro gamers we have in StarCraft, and all of them are either nice, really nice, or just total sweethearts. And Bjorn is a total sweetheart. He did not need to be an asshole to win GSL or BlizzCon. That's an aside. Because we don't have too much going on right now. It is a factory expand from Bjorn. And Max Pax obviously has scouted that. Max Pax most likely going to go into his Twilight Council. He might try and be a little more aggressive with the Blink Stalkers just because that last game went so swimmingly for him. He might see an opportunity in how one side of that last game was, kind of carry on with the momentum and try and really do damage with the Blink Stalkers. Something he didn't bother with last game. Instead, choosing to go for a more streamlined macro approach. It might change, because he did win that first game, and so convincingly, too. But right now, with the Factory Expand, it's more so about what Bjorn is doing. He is getting a couple of Reapers, and maybe one or two Hellions, definitely one, but maybe two. But it's not any type of real Reaper Hellion aggression. Honestly, a little more scouting a lot of the time. Max Pax can predict this to a certain extent. The Adept is going to try and scout without dying in the process, which it should be able to do. It's going to take some injuries, though. But it got the scout. So only 2 Reapers, 1 Hellion. Did it see the command center? Well, you can predict the command center. There you have it. And that should be enough. That should be enough. Because if it was a reactored Reapers, then it would be 1-3 instead of, 1-2 on the number of Reapers. Still don't want them to let them into the main base. All easy peasy, though. Wall is sufficient. Wall is good. Wall. Maybe try to grenade over. Not really worth it, though. The units are already responding. And that's just a non-issue. That also means that Bjorn has not scouted what his opponent is doing. But, does it take a genius? Max Pax, of course, has... Oh, he did see the Twilight Council. My bad. But he has, he does go Stargate occasionally. It is nice to see the Twilight... Okay, I'm not trying to zoom in. Just nice to see the Twilight Council. Nice reach on the Adepts. Trades out for the Reaper, though, which I'm not sure is quite worth it. And the Blink is going into 3 gateways, not 4. But the question is, does the Warp Prism appear? Double Medevac drop. Sorry, double Widowmine drop and a single Medevac coming along now as the Natural is done for Bjorn. He might try and do a little sleight of hand here. Try and distract the main while hitting the Natural and vice versa. Warp Prism is on the way. We're going to have that attempt to push a little more aggression into the game than last. He won't delay his 3rd Nexus by the looks of things. But he will possibly delay like the Forge and Charge to get a good number of Stalkers. Widowmine's actually providing a bit of a bother here. 3 probes have already gone down to the Marines, and the Widowmines are safeguarding the Marines. 1 Widowmine did die, and the next one blinked away. Medevac will escape. 4 probes killed isn't terrible, but it is a little more than you were hoping for as far as the damage you receive, plus all the lost mining time. But there's the Warp Prism. Liberator, unfortunately in the wrong part of town, gets destroyed immediately. Such a lucky grab there from Max Pax. Bjorn's going to be frustrated with that one. Tank is Siege Hover in the main with some nice SimCity covering it. Second tank was going to appear as well, so good thing that Max Pax didn't try and jump on top of the tank. And a bunker in the Natural with a tank guarding that as well. A 3-gate could still kill this. We have seen that from Max Pax before, but this is a proper setup to defend. Let's see. Tank is going to help out. The second tank, very important, helping out the first one. First one does die, but that's something you kind of just have to live with. Some SCVs will lose their lives, some Marines as well. And it looks like we got a couple of Stalkers in the Natural, 2-shotting the SCVs right there. Bjorn is taking some return damage. All the while, Max Pax is building his 3rd. Don't forget that. but he is not building up his technology. He's also currently supply blocked, so a little oopsie-poopsie there from MaxPax, who should be warping in more stalkers currently, and instead is going to have to run away and only warp in a portion of the minerals that he's accumulated. Might as well, yeah, add on the technology that you were initially missing, at least the forge, right? The forges cost only money. You can slap those down with the excess minerals you built up. Charge costs gas, which is something that MaxPax actually does not have to spare. He did finally warp in those stalkers. Tank number 2 goes down. Bunker goes down. Warp Prism Micro alongside the Blink. But the third tank was built, and it will protect... Wait, is that a... Yeah. No, he's at 4 tanks at one point. Now down to 2, and it would be nice if Bjorn could stop building tanks. And at this point, he probably could. The bio is starting to accumulate. And it looks like that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to go ahead and change over to a reactor. Charge is finally on the way as MaxPax has gained enough gas to get that. He has saturated his third, at least as far as the minerals go. And yet to start up his upgrades. He did not mean to build 2 forges, which I thought was dangerous of him to do. It looks like it was a mistake, so only 1 forge producing +1 attack. And then just roaming around trying to figure out what exactly Bjorn's doing. And Bjorn's just going to wait for Stim combat shields and +1. Nice eyes. Kills the observer. And even though Bjorn did take some harassment damage, 6 SCVs, that's acceptable. It's fine. 2 more barracks being produced now. MaxPax would probably know the timing. That means there is a 3rd CC in the main. He will grab the medevac. Bjorn didn't notice till the last second, so otherwise I think he would have pulled that away. And the Warp Prism is going to have to be recalled by the looks of things. But 5 more SCVs were killed, and that's actually kind of nice. Now making that 11 SCVs in total killed for the price of 4 stalkers. Oh, these medevacs almost getting caught. MaxPax seriously just 1 second away from scouting those 2 medevacs. That stalker moved over here specifically to scout for that possibility, and it was 1 second too late. Well, luck giveth, luck taketh, I guess. He got that Liberator for free, and well, now he's out of position and not prepared for the drop, which with only stalkers to respond is not really what you want. You do need some buffer on the front. There you have it. The Zealots do appear, and the Blink forward does manage to snipe the full medevac, so not as easy peasy as Bjorn was perhaps hoping, considering how much of a surprise that drop ended up being. But 10 probes did go down. He did force the recall, so the stalkers aren't bothering him as he takes the 3rd CC. And things got at least a little simpler for a moment in time. MaxPax in a 4th base, going up to Colossus, +2 attack. Is going to start his little razzle-dazzle with the Zealots. Stalkers on the left, Zealots on the right, Zealots in the main, Stalkers on the right. And Bjorn needs to be able to split his army rather quickly. War Prism's going to go into that main. 2 Vikings already on it, however, will stop any further reinforcements. And just pull the SCVs, get the army over there, and make sure that you're not sending too much army because the Stalkers are still looking for opportunities. But no longer just the Stalkers. Here comes the rest of the army. Zealots, Sentries, Immortal, even the Colossus walking on over. With the Warp Prism gone, Bjorn no longer has to worry about the main base. He can focus entirely on his 3rd, which is exactly what he needs to do. A couple of Wood Mines with the tanks helping out against the Zealot run by, trying to go into the natural main army fight happening around the 3rd. MaxPax currently bullying Bjorn. Does have a 10 army supply lead. Marauders caught in the forefront of the force fields. Say that 5 times fast. Do take a lot of damage. Some of them very, very injured. Right now, we have a very big problem on the medevacs. He lost the earlier medevac, right? He lost another medevac with the drop. Then he produced 2 Vikings instead of 2 medevacs. So the medevacs are currently a big problem. He is trying to build them back up again, and he does have some just taking care of the Zealots and the natural. But as that was all happening, 25 SCVs went down. Wah! Zealots did a better job in the natural than I gave them credit. 25 SCVs killed. That puts Bjorn into an almost all-in position. I mean, I know he's on 3CC. He's rebuilding the SCVs, but that's a lot of damage to take. And it's not like he did anything in return to MaxPax. Max Pax has the map at this point. 4th base saturated. 5th base could be on the way, honestly. He's got enough minerals. Zealots roaming around, preparing for the run by, but then also doing a bit of scouting themselves here. Dark Shrine now being produced, just adding up all the options, including Double Forge. 5th base actually goes over to the left side, not the right, but we still have scouting pylons, which is still very important. Byun's option here is to get to a basically maxed out army, or almost maxed out, with Vikings, with the EMPs, and then try and push and win with that one push. As far as the long game goes, I don't think Byun is in a position to really play that. He might try. You know, there is a great equalizer in the maxed out supply moment in StarCraft. And that if you can just defend, then maybe you could bring it back. But I don't know. Not against Max Pax, man. He's got so many run-bys, and the DTs are coming, and the Warp Prism with the speed is coming. You know it's all on the way. Byun does have an equal army supply, despite being down 30-ish supply. That's in the workers. Clearing out some observers, just limiting the opportunities for Max Pax to take a better fight. Because Byun needs the best fight possible. He needs to win with this push. He is not going to try anything else. A couple of force fields slicing off a handful of units, but the Vikings still getting some pot shots on these Colossus. One already almost dead. Zealots on the right side going to come in. Zealots in the main as well. Byun going to be forced into an even more all-in position, but that's kind of expected. Although nice defense in the main so far, and the natural. Never mind. That's the goal with the Zealot run-bys. Distract, buy time, ensure economic victory. But actually, this was a good handling. This was a triple-pronged attack. Oh, but here come the DTs. I spoke too soon. No Vikings left at home to take care of the Warp Prism. Ugh, you hate to see it. As a Terran player. Protoss is now being Doom dropped in the main, however, a little out of position. Right now, we do have upgrades favoring Max Pax that will continue on, by the way. So Byun, he's starting to lose out on any potential timing that he had. Zealots coming on the backside, and that is actually going to be it. Max Pax. Woof. Dominating. Dominating performance right there. Let's try and find some players who don't cast all that much. We got Gumiho. Hello. Wow, Clem Classic played a lot of games. We haven't cast Showtime in a while. It's PVZ. Yeah, I guess we'll go with that one. Let's play some ads. Okay. All right, so a best of 3 PVZ. Let's make sure I got game 1 correct. So a little Europe versus Korea action here on Sandworm. In the top position, it is Showtime. And on the bottom, we have Solar. Showtime, not actually playing in a lot of the weekly cups. So I haven't cast them in a little bit. Has some pretty good PVZ. I think they played a Big Brain Bouts somewhat recently. I just had it up. There we go. Yeah, they played a Big Brain Bouts recently, and it looks like Solar did win that, but it was 3-2, so it was very close. Before that, Showtime won. Before that, Solar. Before that, actually, so late last year, Showtime was on a tear. He went to a 5-series win streak against Solar. Of course, before that, Solar had a 4-win streak. It seems like they don't actually have as much of a history as I expected. Not quite extensive. But it does favor Solar overall. It's very close in games. So, should be a good PVZ. And I'm always a big Showtime fan. I respect his style of play, even though I also really like Hero, who has a completely opposite style of Protoss play. I love both. Hero's got the wacky aggression, and Showtime has got the precision, pinpoint Protoss play, where you just, when everything works, it works in this beautiful tapestry of defensive Protoss. He's also gotten better over the years at choosing his time to strike, so, you know, unfortunately, one of the things that he was known for was, you know, kind of letting games go, or always doing the same thing a lot of the time. Some people didn't maybe appreciate watching Showtime try and defend perfectly, as that can be the non-flashy way of playing StarCraft and watching StarCraft, but I think he's gotten to be even more exciting as he's added in the times of which, you know, you're kind of second-guessing, is it the right time to move out? Is he actually going to win with this? And he does. A little more of that Hero-esque element to it, where he sees a moment to strike, and it's not 100% clear, but there's a good chance it'll work, and he actually goes for it. So Showtime is going to open up with a Stargate, but, you know, it's PVZ, and just a reminder, because I know we don't cast as much of it as we once did, this is completely normal. Still, the bread and butter, if there is something even more common than bread and butter, it's the rice. It's the rice of PVZ. I guess it depends on what region you're from, which is more popular. But if you're European, it's your bread and butter. If you're Asian, it's the rice. And North Americans, I don't even know what we have. It's our diabetic sugar of PVZ. Oracle, maybe one more Oracle. Also, just totally normal. Hero does a little more of that mixing up what comes out of the Stargate, try and confuse and wow his opponent. Showtime, not as much. And with the Oracle, it does look to be a pretty typical stuff. The Adepts do barge on into the main base, though. Pretty aggressive maneuver, but it might actually net them maybe 2 drones. It's only going to be 2. That's not really worth it, but they also were kind of trapped. That was, you know, very normal speed timing. Not particularly fast, but definitely not slow either. And so even if they had a shaded out, they would not have survived. Oracle going to try and do some damage. Getting 3 drones while living is acceptable, as long as it lives, right? Not what you want, though, back at home. Uh-oh. Well, it's not the end of the world to have all this happen, but this is the better start for the Zerg player. I am giving Solar a little bit more benefit here. I do think that Showtime comes in as a slight underdog. So I'm like, oh gosh, on Showtime's side. Solar's doing everything right. Solar defended the Adepts. But then Showtime also maybe over aggression with the Adepts, right? They could have maybe returned back home as opposed to trying to get more drones. They could have never gone into the main, thinking it was too dangerous in the first place, thus being back at home the third to defend against those Adepts. Ditto on the Oracle, and it's just... I mean, it's the chance you take when you send literally all of your units across the map. Is that the Lings will kill them and counterattack, or just avoid them and counterattack. But we do now have more Adepts into the natural, and now it's this time it's Solar who is going to be out of place. The Adepts get into the main once more, killing already 4 drones. Double Oracle looking at that drone line, licking their lips, being like, ah, yeah. Oh, there it is. Not as dramatic, though, as the Queens did a great job being the protectors, but the drones did move back into the Adepts. The Adepts did not shade out, and now will be recalled, probably a better use for them. 2 out of 3 will survive, 2 Oracles still alive, and that did help make up for the denied 3rd Nexus. That was the string of events you were really hoping for as the Protoss player. And, well, that can happen when Solar does leave his units out on the other side of the map. Little tit for tat right there. Except I think that Showtime's tat was a little bit bigger. I don't know if we're getting some type of weird innuendo at this point, but the point is he did a lot of damage. Solar's drone count went down to an abysmal state. He is quickly trying to recover that, just pumping out as many drones as possible. But he was really supposed to be at this drone count this entire time, right? Basically matching the Protoss or even a little ahead of times. So that's a bummer for him, for sure. Stalkers obviously alluding to the fact that Blink is the research of choice. +1 is on the way. All 6 gases are being taken, though, so we're not going to have some super expand, super gateway-based mass charge lot play like Hero did bring back into the fold, 2-3 years ago at this point. We are going to go into Temple Archives. Archons, Storms, all that good stuff. Double Oracle still alive and still doing a great job scouting. I want to know exactly what Solar's plan is. If Solar's plan was to be aggressive, which it could have been, right? Ling Hydra attacking into Showtime. It just feels like it's really delayed. It does not feel as scary if there is an attack planned. And if there's not an attack planned, then Showtime will get to a pretty good army. Stalker, Charge, Archon, Storm. Up against Solar's currently, again, only Ling Hydra. No Ultralisks. No Lurkers. No Banelings. It's not that it's not a fearsome army when it can be, obviously. Ling Hydra can be quite the damage dealer, but it's also kind of glass cannon-y, especially if Storms are going to make an appearance. Showtime being a little aggressive on creep, already cleared up most of it. Knows that he has Oracles and a Stasis Trap to fall back to. Now that's wonderful against Ling only, but as we do have Hydra starting to accumulate here, I think this is a little dangerous. A little. The Stasis Traps hopefully would have saved him if Solar was more prepared, but he was still building up his army at that time. At this point, Solar does have 4 bases, 63 drones, which is not a terribly convincing economy. It's not like he's macroing out of control right now. No, he is going for the attack. But like I said, it just doesn't feel as fearsome as it should. Not with the big delay on getting to the optimal amount of drones. And Showtime is just seeing this coming, man. Look at this. Look at this. Jesus Christ. I mean, I think even without all the static defense, he would have been fine. But now he's grabbing all this static defense, and there's no way this is going to work for Solar. Solar already... he didn't even scout this, but I think he just knows this isn't going to work as in win. It could work as in give him an opportunity, but it's not going to win him the game. Definitely not. So he is moving on behind this. He did add on those drones, getting up to 70+. But Showtime, this has kind of given Showtime a bit of a green light. Not just to chase after these units as he is doing, but perhaps more. To actually go across the map and stop... Oh, Jesus. Yeah, Solar just taps out, man. Showtime didn't even have to move across the map before Solar was... He's already given up. The light faded from his eyes like 2 or 3 minutes ago. GG's. What looked like a bad start for Showtime turned into a wonderful post-start. And then he just carried through. Easy win there. Easier win than usual. Game 2 will be on Ultra Love. Top right, Showtime. Bottom left, Solar. Showtime, not the most consistent when it comes to this immediate probe scout / block, but this series he is being very consistent with that. Maybe realizes it does throw off Solar, maybe a little more than some other Zergs. Maybe just making sure that he mixes it up so that he has practice in all starts. And, you know, there's a possibility he's doing this to, you know, add some more effectiveness to an adept attack, which he's not particularly well known for, but you should be throwing out every once in a while. It's obviously going to be blocked. Not much that Solar can do about that. Solar is going to have to once again concede the natural, take the third. It's just, it can contribute to the other bad stuff that happened last game, but we're not really ready to blame it on this. But it can, you know, the Queens having to walk and maybe temporarily off creep can affect their defense against either the Adepts or the Oracles, right? And usually that's something a Zerg is really good about, is making sure all of the hatcheries are connected by creep. But it takes a little while. Some maps are worse than others as well for that. And then all that drone mining that is lost on the transfer of drones in such a long distance. It does seem, you know, when you kind of add up all the potential problems of taking the third as your natural, it does seem like it's worth it every single game. But Protoss don't do it every single game, so they're you know, must not be that dramatic. They do give up a little bit of their own economy, of course, sending out really 2 probes, actually. If you don't play Protoss, maybe you haven't picked up on this, but the first probe goes out lickety-split. That's an entire probe gone from basically second 1 of the game. That's a decent amount of lost mining. But then the second probe is the one that's going to the natural to build shit. And it's a distance for that probe as well. So then you have 2 probes that are either not mining or sub-optimally mining, at least until that Nexus is done. But it does seem more annoying for the Zerg. Provided the Protoss doesn't forget to build anything on the low ground here. Not that I've ever done that. It does seem more annoying for the Zerg player. Another Stargate opener, probably into those Oracles. It would be a change-up. It could be a 1-2 punch for Showtime to do something like 1 Oracle in the Twilight Council, Resonant Glaives. Just not usually his thing. Solar's main goal right now is just not take as much damage. It wasn't the first 2 Adepts that did the damage. It was the combo triple Adept 2 Oracle that did the damage a little later on. Showtime possibly not even going to try with the first 2 Adept harassment, although the second one is on the way. It might stay at home. This one might go back home. He did have that blip on his third Nexus. That could be improved. You could get that down immediately as opposed to grabbing 2 drones for 2 Adepts, which was not worth it. This is the best streamer portrait setup location I've seen for decades watching Twitch. This is actually usually what I do, so that's good. I mean, I absolutely hate streams that are just cluttered. You know, I can't find my ego big enough to make my camera bigger. I hate all the flashing text and stuff on some people's screens. But I will say that, you know, it works for some people, apparently. Some streamers out there have like 50% of the screen to the actual game, and they're as popular as hell, so I don't know. So far, not a lot of damage found, but also less damage attempted. The Adepts did stay at home. They were prioritizing the safety of the Nexus over those attempts to kill the drones. Even though the second attempt was good, still, you know, it's always a bit of a risk. Twilight Council and Forge is on the way. We're going to go back into that Blink. Probably. It could be Charge Archon. 2 Oracles looking at that natural. Not a terribly good idea, though. Might want to... Yeah, they grabbed 1 drone who had, for some godforsaken reason, why? Gone on the backside of the minerals. Stupid drones. Adepts. Oh, Adepts were coming across the map. I missed them. They were fast little devils. The Adepts did come from the natural third base, sorry, over to Solar's main, which they will grab 3-ish drones. Staying in the main was the better idea, as the Lings weren't ready to respond. It could be 4 drones, should be 4, might be 5, might be 5. It was 9 in total, because the Oracle swooped in and killed some more when I was not looking. 9 drones, total of 10 right there, and the Adepts were the only loss. That's pretty good. It's similar, but not exactly equal to the last game, actually. Last game, when a similar number of drones died, it might have been at an earlier time, or Solar might have made more Lings. He did, after all, do that run by on the 3rd. Point is, he did not dip below 50. And that's, I believe, what he did. He got down to like 45, I think, in the last game. What is this from? This is from a Wardy TV event. I don't know which one. But it's only, I think, a week old. Like a week and a half old or something. Blink was the choice, by the way. +1 also on the way. Oracle's continuing to do their scouting. Once again, Solar going with the Ling Hydra. He does seem to like this quite a bit in PvZ from the ones that we have cast of him. Now, last game, it was... there wasn't a lot of hope in the push. The way that the opener worked out, then Showtime scouted it and was totally, even overly prepared for it. But this time, I think we already have a difference. The 6-ish drones that were actually added in this game to not dip as far down as he did last, I think is really important. Now, he's still below Showtime in drones, and that could be a problem. But I just think that his attack is actually going to have a little bit more bite to it. Showtime will have to respect it as much as he did last game. Solar not going to try and chase after these stalkers, so they are going to get some freebies on the creep. Knowing that the stasis traps certainly are behind them, he actually is going to avoid the most obvious location to push through. And Solar, you sneaky little devil. Showtime didn't see this at all. Showtime has no idea. This should be your red flag. Why is there no army protecting the third base? Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Over into the natural. Solar was going to have a pretty good time, I would say, actually handling the stalkers, but finding them completely out of position, well, that just makes life way easier. Cybernex core is killed, so no more stalker warp-ins. Charge is not done. Storm is not done. Everything that Showtime could actually produce is not very effective right now. 5 probes have gone down, but that's just the start. It's the tip of the iceberg here. Solar knows he's got an opportunity. Even when Storm finally finishes, there just won't be enough to combo with the Storm. And this was all about 30 seconds before Showtime was going to be very prepared. 30 seconds is the difference of Showtime probably pulling back to defend with the stalkers, right? It is the difference of Storm, charge, being actually completed. More units would have been warped in. But he just completely missed the army. Completely missed it. Spent all of his Oracle energy and attention on the front lines. Next game, I wouldn't be surprised if Showtime makes sure that he leaves an Oracle stasis trap back at his natural. Just to make sure that never happens again. It's all about the timing, man. Oh, the little kitten I was going to play with tomorrow got adopted. But the senior's still there. And now it's tied up 1-1. In the top, yes, top left it is Showtime. In the bottom right it is Solar. Still on Team Falcons, by the way. Showtime, as far as I know, is teamless, right? Big let him go a couple of months ago at this point, actually. which we knew was coming. He knew was coming as well, actually. I talked to him at Katowice last year, and he talked about how big it only agreed for like a 6-month renewal or something like that. So it actually seemed like they kept him on even longer than they initially said, but yep, eventually moved out of StarCraft. So I don't think anyone else has picked him up yet, but Falcons, if you don't know, is the frankly, it's a Saudi Arabia team, and you know, there's kind of a blunt way to put it, but it's the truth. The team that is made by Saudi money completely. They picked up a lot of really good players across all of the esports that happen at Esports World Cup, so that they can win the club championship, which is kind of funny because it's just like money going back into the pocket. But aside from that, the good news is they continue to support StarCraft. So I think there is actually a rumor that Solar might have been let go from them a couple months ago, but that clearly didn't pan out, so that's good news. And then, yeah, like I said earlier on in the cast, if you guys missed it, you didn't hear it from me, but there might be some good news on the horizon as far as the StarCraft 2 tournament goes. But yeah, he's still on Falcons. Picked up last year. Showtime, once again, denying that natural. Such is life. Such is being a Zerg player. Will he change things up? It is not a series of events in which I would encourage Showtime to change things up. Not that he should ever listen to me. But first game, very good game for Showtime. Like I said, one of the easier games he's probably had versus Solar. Contributed mostly because of the Oracles and the Adept harassment. That just put him in such a prime position that the next problem would have been defending the all-in from Solar, and he did that totally fine. Second game, total out-of-position problem. 100%. If he knew that army was heading that direction, the Stalkers would have done a much better job of slowing that push down. The Stalkers would have done a great job blinking away from the Lings. The Hydras wouldn't be able to catch up quite a bit. We're talking like 10 seconds of buying time, but that's enough time to get the Oracles back home and also build stasis traps to prepare some shield batteries so they hopefully finish during the battle. To obviously have the Stalkers actually defend around a location rather than having to be recalled at the last second. It's the timing. There's like 20-30 seconds in that last game gone different ways that would have changed the outcome completely. So this is not a series in which you look at Showtime and you go, poor Showtime. He's going to die to the Korean Zerg. Silly European. No, not at all. I mean, so far this actually looks like a very fair series. Solar had a kind of... embarrassing is a strong word, but he had a really lame loss, and then Showtime had a really lame loss. You know, you didn't find the army going out of position. You smack yourself in the forehead once, and you move on with life. So for game 3, double Oracle, maybe even the Adept pressure once more after making sure the Nexus comes back alive. I mean, it could look totally identical. And it's fair game for both players. I mean, Solar might be the one who's even a little bit more scared, but I don't even give that much credit, right? The second game, he had an easy task because he found his opponent completely out of position, but that's not guaranteed. In the first game, he had a bad game because he was out of position himself and lost a bunch of drones. That's also not guaranteed. I mean, no one really has a clear path here to victory. We are getting, I want to say that's a faster Twilight Council, but maybe it's not. It is still 2 Oracles, so it's 2 Adepts instead of, I think he went up to 3 or 4. Oh, there you go. There's more. This is a faster Twilight Council. I'm not exactly sure why, if I'm being honest, but it is, because it's not coming down with the Forge. That's what I'm looking at right now. So the Twilight Council and the Forge came down at the exact same time in the last 2 games. Really pointing to a Blink build most of the time. Maybe Charge, but then also pointing to more of a macro game. This is a very fast Twilight Council. It is going to grab Resident Enclaves. It's not 2 base Resident Enclaves. It's 3 base after the 2 Oracles, like I said. But it could still be the surprise that Showtime needs to knock Solar on his ass. Did he have to do it? My argument was no, he didn't have to, but Should he? Well, I also said in this cast that everyone should throw in an Adept build against a Zerg player every once in a while, and that's what Showtime's doing. So will Solar pick up on this? Now, the first thing he might notice is a lack of stalkers. You're going to just warp in stalkers, usually on the third base, because it's going to help defend any run-bys. And that's going to be scouting given to the Zerg. Wow, you have a lot of stalkers. You probably have Blink. So far, the Adepts that are actually being warped in have not been scouted. They come across the map without a warp prism, though. So they're not as scary. But right now, yeah, they would have been scary if they got into the natural. Good wall there from Solar as he builds up his roach count. Queens might go down here, which opens up the opportunity for the Oracles, but the wall will hold. And the Adepts got to figure out what else they can possibly do to help out. Well, fourth base could be canceled. They are going to head over to that third. Only a couple of roaches to help out here, but the drones are pulled swiftly. 3 drones going down is not what Showtime is looking for. It needs to find more damage. They go into the natural. They don't go into the natural. The block was meant to be had. It is not had, but the natural was kind of safe because the Adepts couldn't actually shade into the mineral line. If they don't shade close to the mineral line, they're not very effective. Not when the person has an army. So that would have been a waste. Showtime's cancel on the shade was the right move, even though he didn't get walled out. And unfortunately, the Adepts didn't do as much damage as I think they need to. It's hard to say. 8 drones, and he saved 6 Adepts. Solar had to obviously respond to the Adepts, so he wasn't droning this entire time. But he does get thrown down to 53 drones. His plan here to go for an attack still seems like a very good one. He might have a little bit more trouble reinforcing as much as he usually would thanks to the Adept attack, but I don't know if Showtime's going to have enough army. And Showtime, I don't think, realized what's happening either. This army on the front lines, once again, missing the move-outs of his opponents. He will not be in position. His natural will already be ransacked by the time he responds. The Cybernetics Corps, once again, could be the target. Showtime might have to just lean into this base trade. Wants to go for the block, is not going to be able to. Solar on top of it, also brought the Queens, of course, could start creep. Showtime is going to recall, but that's so awkward. He does recall to the main, so he will have this high ground and this ability to blink reflexively, but his natural is totally destroyed. Cybernetics Corps is gone, gateways are gone, Robo could be killed. Nexus might not be targetable. Solar's not ready to try and go after that quite yet. He's going to go after the third, kill the reinforcements there. Stasis traps being put down in an emergency situation. Love the Immortal being produced while it's up and running. Use it. But the army is everywhere. Showtime supply, currently half of that in army, which isn't impossible for Protoss to hold against, but they usually have all of their army together, bulked up against shield batteries with some cannons to help out. Creep spread non-existent, right? This is a much different and much worse scenario for Showtime. And that might just be it for him. Charge not done, so these Zealots not looking super hot. More reinforcements on the way for Solar, who's already killed a lot of probes. Might be able to kill the third Nexus. If he doesn't do that, he's just going to kill the army anyway. Once again, Showtime attacking and not realizing that he is being attacked. Ruins his chances of a good defense. And that'll be that for game number 3 and the series. Solar will win this Wardy TV something or another tournament that was happening. I think it was a group, actually, so he advances out of his group perhaps because of this. But it's definitely game over. Showtime, very frustrated with the last 2 games, no doubt. Just being out of position. I think if he had stayed at home and been surprised, he would have had a better chance, but choosing to attack in and having a recall makes things so awkward. GG's. It's not quite that, Mike. Not quite. Well, guys, that'll be it for me today, actually. I usually go a little bit longer than this, but I've been feeling quite exhausted these last few days. Bad sleep, bad eating, stress, all that good stuff. So, wanted to get some casts done. Tomorrow will be an evening stream. Maybe Baldur's Gate again. And then Friday will be the last stream before I head on vacation. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for the resubs. Thanks for the donation, Mr. Chaz. And thanks for watching in general. Hope you have a good rest of your Wednesday. And I'll see you guys tomorrow evening. Bye-bye.